For the record, my name is Henry Santana, at-large City Councilor, and I am the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice. Today is November 26, 2024. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live-streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcasted on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Files Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.ps@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. If you are interested in testifying in person, please add your name to the sign-up sheet near the entrance of the chamber. If you are looking to testify virtually, please email our Central Staff Liaison, Shane Pack, at shane.pack@boston.gov for the link, and your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is on docket number 1562, Order for a Hearing regarding public safety and quality of life issues in downtown and Boston Common. This matter was sponsored by Councilors Ed Flynn and Julia Mejia and was referred to the committee on October 23, 2024. Today, I am joined by my colleagues in order of arrival, Councilor Erin Murphy, Councilor Ed Flynn. We also received letters of absence from Councilor Brian Worrell and Councilor Enrique Pepen. Before we begin, I'd like to just ask folks to please silence their phones and devices. I'd like to hand the floor over now to my colleagues for opening remarks, beginning with the lead sponsor and original co-sponsor, and then proceeding in order of arrival for our other colleagues. Councilor Ed Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for chairing this important hearing. I also want to recognize my colleague, Councilor Mejia, at large City Council, for co-sponsoring this important hearing with me as well. I know Councilor Mejia is not feeling well. She did want to be here. We called for this hearing to address public safety challenges in the area of Boston Common, downtown Boston, as well as the critical need to enhance city response and services. Over the last few months, over the last many years, downtown residents, families, businesses, office workers have reached out to my office, to me personally, regarding the rising visibility of open-air drug dealing, drug consumption, violent crime, including stabbings and assaults, an overall decline in public safety in and around Boston Common and downtown Crossing. Residents, as well as workers, tourists, have expressed to me that they, at times, do not feel safe walking in the Boston Common in downtown Crossing during certain times of the day, not just in the evenings. Students as well live in that neighborhood. Parents of young children, many of whom are downtown residents, they walk their kids to preschool every morning. They have expressed frustration to me directly for the safety of their children, the unhealthy environment that they walk by in the Common to pick up and drop off their kids. I have met these parents at least a half dozen times. They are concerned. Some businesses, including restaurants and coffee shops, speak of having to put in increased security measures, shortening their business hours in the evening to protect their staff and businesses for fear of personal safety. Tremont Street is a perfect example. There have been multiple reports from tour operators who have either rerouted or decided to skip Boston Common altogether. In the summer, following a stabbing in downtown Crossing, I partnered with the Downtown Boston Alliance, formerly the Boston BID, along with the Downtown Residents Association, with the colleges and universities, business owners, workers, for a public safety walkthrough with residents. We have done this probably 15 times over the last 7 years. We met with business owners. We met with university partners. Boston Police play a critical role. Many have expressed unease and concern of safety due to instances of aggressive behavior, drug dealing along Winter Street, Tremont Street, Park Street, the Brewer Fountain. I met with the Beacon Hill Nursery School after a 4-year-old and caregiver was assaulted by a woman. In October, there was another stabbing near Brewer Fountain, where many parents reportedly witnessed the aftermath while walking their children to school. I, together with Boston Police A1, were at the school as well with Sergeant Crossan. We were out front when that took place, and we met with the parents as they were coming in, walking by the stabbing, and expressed to us how unsafe they feel in the neighborhood. Downtown Boston, Boston Common remain both critical economic engines, home to some of the most important historic sites in our country. There is an urgent need to reevaluate the current strategy in addressing public safety, quality of life issues in the heart of Boston. We need to have a zero-tolerance policy for any criminal activity and arrest criminals when they are committing illegal activities. This is also a criminal justice issue, and those who commit violent crimes should receive a state sentence, in my opinion. We also need to discuss strategies to provide support and resources for those who are struggling with mental health, substance use disorders. I invited the coordinated response team as well as the district attorney to listen in on the hearing today, but unfortunately the district attorney's office is not able to make it today. However, we must continue to work together with city officials, our law enforcement partners, the DA's office, residents, businesses, downtown, and the park's advocates, who play a critical role. Friends of the Public Garden, tremendous leadership from them. Final analysis, we need a safe downtown crossing. We need a safe Boston Common. Progress is being made. We have to stay on top of this issue. I know this area probably as well as anyone in city government, or certainly anyone in City Hall. I worked as a Superior Court probation officer at the courthouse for 8 years prior to this. I went to high school here at Don Bosco in Chinatown, but a city councilor for 8 years. I know this area, love this area. I'm in the downtown crossing area every day. I like to see my friend George over here. Sometimes George speaks too long. When I get him, we have coffee, and I end up want to be with George for 10 minutes, and I end up staying for an hour with George. But I love the neighborhood. I love the people. It's about working together. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Erin Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank the panelists who are here. And thank you, Councilor Flynn, for convening us. I know when you brought this up at the council hearing that day, you really spoke to your understanding of this issue. And, you know, it wasn't just what we see on the media or what we hear, like you're in this neighborhood all the time. And I want to thank you. You invited me a few times. We've had Zoom meetings where you've gathered us together, including the colleges in the neighborhood. You have a very unique neighborhood, the downtown Boston area. We have colleges, business owners, and of course the residents who live here who, and thank you to the, Rishi for your advocacy and others, making sure that the residents don't feel like they're drowned out by all the other needs that the downtown district brings to the city. So thank you for that. And, I've also heard directly from, the police in A1 that there is an increase in a population of homeless or those struggling with mental health and substance use disorder. And we've had hearings on different issues, but the fact of, the tent encampment coming down, has that brought more of a population to this area? And do we need to address, a new plan of action to make sure that we have the resources necessary so that those struggling get what they need, but those who live here and those who come and visit and those who work feel safe? Everyone deserves that. So looking forward to this conversation and partnering however we can to make sure we get this right for everyone. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. This time we've also been joined by District Councilor Sharon Durkin. You have the floor right now if you have any opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Councilor Santana, or I should say Chair Santana, for hosting such an important discussion on the public safety of our common spaces. Safety and security is paramount importance to me, my office, and I know to the city as a whole. And I know that sometimes we think of these things as district lines, but I know that my constituents enjoy having a glass of wine downtown. They enjoy being in our public spaces. They enjoy being able to move freely through our city, which is extremely walkable. And so these issues are important to all of us. I do want to share a different framing about public safety in downtown Boston and the Boston Common. First, I want to thank the hard work that BPD has done tirelessly and professionally under the leadership of Commissioner Cox. Policing is a difficult and important task. Boston's statistical success around violent crime prevention compared to its peers is a testament to the exemplary work done by our public safety and community organizations, both inside and outside government. Thank you to the Friends of the Public Garden, the Beacon Hill Civic Association, and the Parks Department and others. That said, while I share concerns raised at this hearing, I caution us against perpetuating a narrative that could cause potential harm to our city's vitality and reputation. Yes, we have the duty to steward an environment that upholds public order and safety, but we must do so with nuance, precision, and without creating unnecessary fear. I've spoken directly with residents, and I've heard positive developments. Just recently, I received a heartfelt letter from a Beacon Hill resident who walked past the Brewer Fountain with her 1-year-old child, feeling completely safe. She remarked that this experience reignited her love for Boston, a city she now sees as truly beautiful with kind and wonderful people. The other night, I went to go check out the Common for myself, which I live 0.1 miles from, so I'm there often. And I noticed people laughing, people having fun, and I noticed a decrease in some of the crime that I had witnessed prior. Our A1 police have been responsive, and I know our cadets in training program is just gearing up, and they have a lot of work that they are excited to do as well. After requests from myself and community members, they've increased foot patrols, and I have to shout out the Friends of the Public Garden and the Downtown BID, now the Downtown Alliance, for their work here, which have made a tangible difference in ensuring the Boston Common remains a safe place. These are the kind of collaborative solutions we should be highlighting. We should also be highlighting the facts. Boston statistically is a safe city. I have the Gallup poll from last year that ranks us among of people's feeling of the city as among one of the safest cities in America. But we do know that public disorder in community spaces increased during the pandemic, and we're still working diligently to get back to pre-pandemic levels. I'm deeply concerned about the way we discuss public safety, particularly in this chamber and in media reports. I've heard directly from commercial real estate professionals that the current discourse is potentially having a negative impact on businesses that are willing to move downtown. Every negative narrative risks reducing the foot traffic and community engagement that we need to contribute to public safety. Let me be clear. Businesses bring eyes to the streets, provide internships and jobs for local residents and students, and are critical to our urban ecosystem. When we sensationalize safety concerns, we risk driving away the very activity that helps make for a safer and more vibrant neighborhood. This hearing should not become a platform for fear-mongering, but a constructive dialogue that is measured, community-driven, and really puts the facts forward. We have remarkable partnerships in the city with public safety departments and our local community who are doing the critical work to address these complex challenges. Our approach has to be balanced. We must address legitimate safety concerns while also celebrating the extraordinary progress we've made and still the work we have to do. Boston is not just becoming safer, we are becoming a model for urban stewardship. I support a hearing that brings stakeholders together, but I ask of my colleagues, let us speak about Boston with hope, dignity, and optimism. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Durkin. We've also been joined by, we've also been joined by City Council President Rusulu Eugene. You have the floor right now if you have any opening remarks you'd like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for everyone for being here. Thank you to Councilor Flynn for this filing, and thank you to the panel for being here, Liz, for your tremendous work. Still sad to see you go. I see Leslie in the audience and know that friends will be in a good place, but just thank you for all you've done. You know, Michael Nichols, there are not enough words for me to say about what you've been doing to try to uplift downtown and through the Downtown Business Alliance. I think it's incredible. And I think the amount of enthusiasm that you put into Boston, into downtown Boston being this attraction center for everyone. I mean, I was, as a young kid growing up in the city, used to hang out in downtown Boston. And I wish that downtown Boston that I grew up in was one that was as intentional, as inclusive, and as fun as you're trying to make it. So I just want to thank you for that. That intentionality is just such a beautiful thing to see as someone who grew up in this city. And Rishi, for the work that you do on behalf of residents, it's really important. Like, I just want to stamp 1,000% everything that my colleague, Councilor Durkin, said. You know, this is her district and she cares deeply about it. But, you know, downtown is always a gathering spot for so many people, and we need to make sure that it's open and welcoming to all. And we also want to make sure that we're dealing with issues of crime and the fear of crime, right? Commissioner Cox has a great framing of how he views issues of safety in the city, and there's both violence and the fear of violence, and we do need to tackle both. And we need to make sure that we are not sensationalizing what's happening to make sure that Boston is still the safest and most attractive city that we can make it for everyone. I know that when there's one stabbing, when there's one issue, that's one too many. That's enough to disrupt how we feel in our own city, especially if the park is indeed your backyard. So there's work to do, and I just want to thank everyone for working collaboratively, working together, working with a positive attitude to really address these issues. Everyone from Deputy Superintendent Humphreys to everyone at A1 and everyone in our Parks Department, because it's all of us working collaboratively that's going to really address these issues. And also supporting, you know, for people who are in the downtown area who don't have anywhere else to be, that means supporting more supportive housing, more saying yes to more opportunities for folks to have different places to call home. And I think that's what we all have to do here as a city. So looking forward to hearing from everyone, and they want to thank all of the residents for coming out, for talking to us about your concerns, and we're listening and working collaboratively to address them. So thank you.
Thank you, Council President. At this time, I'd like to provide an overview of the panelists, the committee invited to testify on behalf of the community. Elizabeth Visa, President of the Friends of the Public Garden; Michael Nichols, President of Downtown Boston Alliance; Rishi Shukla, co-founder and leadership team of the Downtown Boston Neighborhood Association; and on Zoom with us today is Colin Zick, President of the Beacon Hill Civic Association. For the panelists who are here today, I'd like to ask each of you to just state your name and title for the record, and once everyone has introduced themselves, we'll move forward with opening remarks. So we can get started.
Yeah. Liz Visa, President of Friends of the Public Garden.
Yep.
Michael Nichols, President of the Downtown Boston Alliance. Rishi Shukla, co-founder of leadership team member, Downtown Boston Neighborhood Association.
Great.
Colin Zick, President, Beacon Hill Civic Association.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all. At this time, I'd like to invite our panelists to please proceed with opening remarks. I just kindly ask that in order to allow time for councilor questions and discussion, and also public testimony, that you limit your opening statements to 5 minutes per panelist. With that, please proceed with opening remarks in whatever order you'd like.
We'll go this way and move down. Today I'm testifying on behalf of the Friends of the Public Garden, as well as supporters and park visitors who use our 3 parks. We have worked with the city for over 50 years to care and advocate for the Boston Common, the Public Garden, Commonwealth Avenue Mall. 7 million people every year come to these parks. Over 60,000 people consider these their neighborhood parks. They are intensively used. The Boston Common, the first public park in America, is the most intensively permitted and used park in the city. It is our center of civic life, and it's a place for celebrations and protests and special events, and it's just a really amazing space that we desperately need. You know, this city would not be a livable city without our parks, so we're very proud and honored to work with the city on behalf of these parks for everybody. In terms of the focus of this committee hearing, We don't have oversight of park rules and regulations or public safety. We often get calls and inquiries from our members and neighbors to have us help out with this issue. We are conveners, we are advocates. We've worked with over 24 agencies and organizations beyond the public partners that we work with, schools and Meet Boston and civic organizations, to try and hold this issue as a really important one, because this, in order for people to care about these parks, they need to be safe and welcoming and accessible to everybody. Everyone needs to know that they're welcome. And unfortunately, we have had some issues and more issues this year than in recent prior years. I think the pandemic was a hard time, and we're all trying to work our way back from a difficult moment for our community. And these are issues that impact everybody. They impact the downtown as well as people that come to the Common. As the city expands, we find our organizations searching for new and effective responses to an intensifying problem of incidents of violence, coupled with, and again, I want to be aware that there is nuance. There are people that are suffering from mental health issues, from substance abuse issues, from homelessness issues, and that has just become more intensified as people cannot find places to live and support services that they need. That said, we are very blessed with the number of support services we have in that neighborhood that are as close to the Common. And we recognize that public health and safety issues are inevitable in a major city. So effective responses are necessary to curb illicit activities that often accompany these issues, and many times those people that are suffering become the victims of drug dealers that prey on them. So we would like to very much commit ourselves to working collectively towards a clear and comprehensive plan to address these concerns, and will provide reassurance and restore confidence in our ability to deal with these issues if we are telegraphing to everybody that the public and the private and nonprofit world are working together. We have been an advocate for public safety for many years, collaborating with the Parks Department, the Park Rangers, the Boston Police, including many A1 captains over the years, and the last 3 commissioners, police commissioners, as well as Emerson College, Meet Boston, which runs the Visitor Center, and social service agencies. And we've worked also on issues such as homeless feeding programs, and people that come from out of the city have a sense that they want to be compassionate, caring for people that are homeless, but that has unintended consequences. So one year we convened the city and many agencies, St. Francis House, St. Anthony Shrine, to talk about how could we redirect that interest to making sure that people can come into a St. Francis House and get the services they need as well as a free meal, because those are problems that just magnify the issues in the Common. We've also engaged and are now advocating for a more robust public safety plan that not only engages Boston Police, but also the DA's office and the courts, for there to be long-term impactful intervention in cases where repeat offenders are returning to the park with impunity. That's a cycle that has got to stop. The police are doing a great job, they're doing what they can, but we cannot arrest our way out of the problem. It's a complicated problem, and we need those other agencies to do their part in a very collaborative way. Our staff and community members have had several unpleasant incidences on the Common, including when the father of one of our staff members was assaulted while purchasing a lemonade in the afternoon. A resident walking their children to the park on their way to school was exposed to open drug use, and the staff had to shut down our park activations at Brewer Plaza because of an indecent exposure incident, threats, and an assault with broken glass being thrown at them. Our parks are vulnerable to unsanitary conditions such as public defecation. And it happened a lot at the, there's a certain point in time where it was happening at that beer garden that the Emerson College was managing so wonderfully. Discarded drug needles threaten public safety, environmental health, and human and animal welfare. And we heard a lot about that from dog owners that come to the park. These are becoming more commonplace, adding logistical complexity and cost to everyday operations and making it risky for park staff to maintain the parks and difficult for park vendors, long-time financial viability. These incidents, a few examples of many, have escalated concerns about public safety from residents, businesses, and neighbors. And we've heard multiple complaints. We're encouraging people to go to 311 to make sure that those issues are registered and that the city knows about them. And we are doing all we can to support efforts to address growing health and safety issues and the perception of those. So this is a priority for us, along with all the work we do caring for these parks, enhancing these parks, and making sure that everybody believes that these parks belong to them. So we are looking forward to continuing that work with the city and with all of the partners that we have worked with for so many years. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chairman Santana, members of the Boston City Council. My name is Michael Nichols, and I serve as president of the Downtown Boston Alliance, formerly known as the Downtown Boston Business Improvement District. I'm joined today by Samantha Brian, the DBA's Outreach and Engagement Manager. We are here on the invitation of the committee and City Councilor Ed Flynn to offer our organization's testimony with respect to docket number 1562. For those who may not know, the Downtown Boston Alliance is a 14-year-old nonprofit business improvement district working to enhance the livability and business climate in downtown Boston. Through our public-private partnership with the City of Boston, the Alliance provides supplemental services in downtown Crossing and the financial district that includes cleaning and waste management, ambassadorial work to steward visitors, social services coordination, event production and public art exhibitions, branding and marketing efforts, economic development and new business attraction services, and much more. We have also, since our inception, worked closely with city officials and especially our partners at the Boston Police Department in collaborative efforts to ensure a safe environment downtown. The state of the safety landscape in our city's broader downtown, extending beyond solely the Alliance's service area, is nuanced and quite fluid. When it's often stated that Boston is the safest major city in America with the country's safest major city downtown, there is much truth to that view. Peers leading bids and other place management organizations around the rest of the country marvel at our statistics. They rave about their first-person experiences visiting Boston. Suburban visitors and those from around the rest of the world can visit Boston with less fear of being the victim of a crime than virtually any other major city in the country. While Boston's historically low homicide rate has garnered the most headlines this year, our city and our police department have long done well across the board in the evolution toward making our city safer each year. However, a safety reputation built over time is only as good in most cases as your most recent personal experiences. And the safety situation experienced by residents, workers, and visitors in our city's broader downtown this year was often totally unacceptable by any standard, and certainly the quite high standard we've built for ourselves in the Boston of today. And this is no commentary on Boston's homeless population, for whom our organization and others continue to dedicate support services, but rather this observation is focused on criminal behaviors, including violence, that usually emanates from those seeking to profit from the opioid and fentanyl epidemic. For too much of this year, criminal drug dealing and the related quality of life crimes that result from congregant drug use have tainted many of the jewels of our city, including downtown Crossing. Still, our organization and the downtown's business community sees the Wu administration and the Boston Police Department as aware of these challenges and working to marshal the needed resources to address the problem. We have appreciated the deployment of a significant number of new officers from the last 2 classes of the police academy to the downtown area, and in recent months have seen the changes in the deployment of other officers to attempt to better and more tactically address problem areas. It's increasingly true that there is a multi-jurisdictional public-private conversation underway to address the issues many observe in our broader downtown, and we should not waste a moment in seeking lasting improvements. Crime and safety issues are often cyclical. We experienced a difficult part of this cycle over the last 12 months, and though overwhelmingly the 23.5 million plus people who visited Downtown Boston Alliance's service area over the last year did so safely and without issue. But it is critical that we collectively do better in the year ahead to support and catalyze the return of office workers, to establish a safer environment for existing and prospective residents, and to continue to encourage the reliable foot traffic of tourists and suburbanites and anyone else interested in spending time on our downtown streets. I thank the committee and the proponents of this order for focusing on an issue of such importance and for welcoming us to provide a few words.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Santana. Thank you, Councilors Flynn and Mejia, for organizing today's hearing and for the invitation to speak at this panel. I'm Rishi Shukla. I'm a downtown resident. I've lived in Boston for 25 consecutive years. I went to college here. I went to grad school here. Professionally, I invest in companies. I serve on a number of nonprofit and for-profit boards. Most importantly, though, I'm a father. I'm a father of 2 beautiful children. My wife and I love this city, and we love calling downtown our home. I'm here today in my capacity as co-founder and leadership team member of the Downtown Boston Neighborhood Association. I have a few slides that I'll flip through in a few minutes, but for context, we exist for one simple reason. We're here to engage, inform, empower downtown Boston residents, workers, stakeholders from all walks of life. We want to create forums for opportunity, discussion, debate, to figure out what's working, what's not, and where we can be better. As it's been said before, downtown Boston is home to a plethora of jewels of our city. We're also home to 12,000 residents. We are professionals, we are students, we are folks who come here for a few years and folks who stay here for many. Our homes are more vertical than they are lateral, and at times that causes folks to say, I wonder if people actually live in downtown or not. We do. There are many of us. We call the Boston Common our backyard. It's one of the most beautiful and most precious jewels of our city, and we need to keep it that way. We are an economic, cultural, and academic hub. We're also a transportation hub. Many things go through downtown Boston, and indeed it's a gateway to our great city. Everyone who lives, works, commutes, studies, passes through downtown Boston deserves 2 things. They deserve to be safe, and they deserve to feel safe. We're here today to talk about public safety. Public safety, as we've talked about earlier, it's very nuanced. This isn't a simple issue. It's not one-dimensional. It's not just about violent crime and homicides. It's about a lot more. I'm grateful to our City Councilor, Ed Flynn, for putting this issue on the map and keeping it there. I'm grateful to my colleagues at the Boston Police Department, Captain Martin, Sergeant Crossan, now Captain Driscoll. The attention that they've paid to this issue is remarkable, and they're doing everything within their control and power to impact the issue and to help change the narrative. I'm also grateful to my fellow panelists, Liz, Michael, their staff who are here today, for your ongoing collaboration as we try to make downtown the best version of itself. So why are we here today? As Councilor Flynn has shared, we've probably done 15 or 20 of these meetings and hearings over the last few years. I'm always happy to do it, but it's also very disappointing and discouraging when you have to do it so often, and that has been the case over the last 6 to 8 months. So let's speak fact to the hearing. Over the last 6 months, we've seen an uptick in open-air drug dealing, drug and alcohol consumption. We've seen a large dislocation of the mass and cast population onto the Boston Common and into downtown. We've seen residents, workers, commuters, and visitors avoiding challenging areas of our park and neighborhood. We've seen children, as has been discussed, on their way to school, on their way back to home, to theaters, to restaurants, bearing witness to violence. I used to work at Boston Medical Center in pediatrics. There was a program called the Child Witness to Violence Program. It exists for a reason. Children who are exposed to trauma and violence at that young of an age, it lasts a lifetime. It can have debilitating impact. That's not acceptable. Our streets have become a free-for-all, it seems. Again, public safety is not just about violent crime, and it's not just about homicide. We can't have mopeds, scooters, and bikers recklessly running through red lights, hitting pedestrians, having near misses. That's not okay. That impacts public safety, that impacts your quality of life. Our shelters are stretched beyond capacity. I'm on the board of the St. Francis House, one of the largest day shelters in this country. Our frontline workers report being more fearful for their own safety, given the types of drugs and activity that they're encountering. Residents, childcare providers, tourists, students, workers, folks who come through downtown are often intimidated, being followed by folks who are abusing drugs or who have mental health disorders, and that also impacts and impairs your quality of life. In advance of today's hearing, I'm a business guy who cares about numbers and facts. We decided to poll our members. We're members, about 1,000 folks who are comprised of residents, workers, folks who own property in Boston. I'm going to flip through a few slides to share some of our findings. So just to level set, we had over 300 responses to our survey, in a matter of 96 hours. That's the largest response to a survey that we've ever had. It speaks to how important this issue is to folks who live and work in downtown Boston. The majority of folks who responded are residents, many are parents of nursery school students, many are business and property owners, and many work in downtown. These aren't surprising numbers. I'll point out that 30% of the residents who responded have children under the age of 18 who live in their home in downtown Boston. So we have a large parent sample. Age distribution, as you can see, is pretty varied. So it's a good representative sample of folks who live and come through downtown. We asked a simple question. Do you feel more or less safe in downtown Boston, in the Boston Common today, than you did at the beginning of the year? 71% of folks who responded reported being less safe. 28% roughly reported no change. What I don't know the answer to is, how did you actually feel a year ago? Was it not very safe? Was it very safe? Let's just assume that it was average. 71% of folks responded feeling less safe today. Let that sink in. This is where there's a disconnect between what we often hear in the media and we often hear coming out of City Hall, which is that Boston is one of the safest cities in the country. It is, when you speak specifically about violent crime and homicide. But your lived experiences dictate what you're seeing up here. There's a massive disconnect that we need to address. When you ask folks about how do you feel in terms of public safety being an urgent issue in downtown Boston, 7, 8, 9, or 10, those are the responses. 91% of folks view this as an urgent issue. These are people who care a lot about downtown Boston and its future. 91% report it being a 7, 8, 9, or a 10. The Boston Common, relatively similar. Folks who come through Boston and the Boston Common and who live in this area think this is an important enough issue to respond the way they have. We can't will our way out of this. It's not going to be an easy journey, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Boston is rightfully described, as I said, as one of the safest cities in our nation. But you have to click in and focus on the details. At the end of the day, when we talk about public safety, context absolutely matters. Your location, the time of day, the cycle that you're in, your lived experiences, where you are in your stage of life. It's about far more than just homicide and violent crime. It entails basic law and order. That includes enforcement, preventing and deterring criminal activity, assisting the homeless. The homeless are part of our community in downtown. We're proud to be a safe neighborhood for all folks who come through it. We need to get our homeless neighbors the help that they need to rehabilitate, to get back on their feet, and to restart their lives. We need to provide treatment to folks experiencing mental health disorders and experiencing addiction. Designing and maintaining safe roads for vehicles, bikers, pedestrians. Designing and maintaining safe sidewalks, areaways for pedestrians. And keeping our public spaces activated and free of trash, needles, and waste. Public safety underpins every aspect of our lives. It underpins society, quality of life, and our economy. We're not going to solve public safety challenges in a vacuum, and we're not going to solve them overnight. But we do need decisive leadership, cooperation between the city and the state, and across all sectors. It is the most fundamental responsibility of our government. As citizens, we can't arrest, we can't make rules and regulations. We need the government to lead the way here, and it needs to be addressed holistically. Given these issues, I believe, and I don't think we've done this yet, we need to convene the following agencies, and we need to be locked in a room until we figure out the top 3 or 4 things that can be done to impact the issue. From the city, it's the mayor's office, it's the Boston City Council, it's the police department, the coordinated response team, the Boston Emergency Services team, the BEST team, who many of you know, the Boston Public Health Commission, the Boston Transportation Department, Parks and Rec. From the state, it's our state senators, our state representatives, the district attorney's office, the MBTA Transit Police, and the Department of Public Health, and other stakeholders, including my colleagues who are joining me on the panel today, as well as our universities and colleges, our neighborhood association, and the neighborhood shelters and churches. How many times can our officers arrest the same person only to see them back on the street committing the same crime? We need the DA's office to step up and to do its job and to be tougher on crime. The current approach is broken and it's unacceptable. When you're on the street preying on the homeless, pushing hard drugs, carrying weapons, pillaging retail stores, and flying through red lights with no regard for human safety, there should be a consequence, and there shouldn't be several chances for remediation. Finally, what happens if we do nothing? I'm not a doom and gloom kind of guy. I'm the father of 2 impressionable, idealistic kids, and I'm positive where I can be, but we have to speak truth to the issue. If you do nothing, you'll continue to have negative impacts on quality of life. Residents will consider leaving the neighborhood. Diminished trust in government and agencies that are entrusted to protect. Declines in tourism. Children being witness to violence, as we've talked about. A declining customer base for our local businesses, fewer lease renewals, more retail vacancies, and declining commercial and residential property values. And over time, urban decay, long-term reputational damages. None of us want to see those things happen. Those are unacceptable outcomes. I challenge us not to let this be like most other meetings and hearings where we talk about the issue, we agree that we have an issue that we have to work on, and then we come back again 6 months from now only to see a worsening of the situation. This moment calls upon our highest ideals and sensibilities for us to put aside partisanship and to get a few things done. Whether you're an elected official in the private sector, from the social services sector, or just an ordinary citizen trying to impact the issue, we all have to do more and we all have to do better. The future of our city depends on our collective action and inaction. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Rashid. Thank you, guys.
Councilor Santana, Chair Santana, I'm
you.
Colin Sick.
Yep, go ahead, Colin. We can hear you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here. I want to thank you for chairing this meeting. I want to thank Councilor President Louis Jean, Councilors Flynn and Mejia for calling the hearing, my counselor, Sharon Durkin, and Councilor Murphy, other city officials, the other stakeholders who are here today, Liz and Leslie in the gallery, Mike and Rishi, and the members of the public. As I said, I'm Colin Zick, president of the Beacon Hill Civic Association. We are a volunteer organization that works to help preserve and enhance the quality of life around Beacon Hill, which of course is a historic urban and residential neighborhood in downtown Boston. And we have seen many of the same issues that have been reflected in the testimony already here today. I apologize for not being there in person. I have some holiday-related obligations, but I appreciate the chance to speak. I'm relatively new in my position. I've been in this job for just 6 months, but I have served for over 10 years on the Beacon Hill Civic Association board and served as its chair for parks and public spaces for nearly that long. I've also served and still serve on the board of the Friends of the Public Garden. I got involved actually with the Friends of the Public Garden over 10 years ago when I found a switchblade under a trash can while playing with my children on the Boston Common ball field. So I'm not naive to say that these problems here are new, but they are a different kind than I've experienced in my 30+ years living and working in Boston. My day job is as a lawyer. I am, again, realistic about the challenges our society faced. I've raised 2 children in Boston. My wife and I got to give her credit there, otherwise I'm going to get in trouble. And we sent them to Boston Public Schools. I walk in the Common or the Public Garden virtually every day. And so I think I have a pretty good sense about what's going on there and how it may have changed. And if you want to see that, I would point you, and I appreciate the survey that Rishi did, point to another way that we survey things. Look at the Google reviews. You can see a Google review from 3 weeks ago. Reeks of weed regarding Boston Common. Don't bring your family here. Secondhand smoke is dangerous to kids. The other review I saw just at the top, quite a change here from 2007, last time I visited. Bunch of drug addicts and meth addicts sitting all over the park. Police seem to be not bothered by the scene. I don't recommend visiting the park with kids. It's very nasty. Under the trees, you will see used tampons and condoms. That's not me. That's what the world is seeing and saying about Boston Common now that it wasn't seeing and saying in the past. And I think these are issues that are public safety and, frankly, economic issues that have to be addressed if we're going to preserve the vitality of these resources. As I said, I became president of the Beacon Hill Civic Association just 6 months ago and really felt like I was immediately confronted with what our residents thought was a crisis: increased drug use, homeless encampments, personal assaults, vandalisms. And I saw it myself. I go for runs on the Esplanade, and there were consistent encampments involving intravenous drug use underneath the Appleton footbridge. When I went on my way to work through Boston Common, the Brewer Plaza reeked of marijuana, and you could see the drug dealing. I was shocked one morning to see dice games going on at 7 o'clock in the morning. That didn't used to happen down there. Just last night, I walked through the Common and watched someone bed down on their shopping cart right by the Frog Pond playground. This is not what we're used to. It is unusual. It is not normal, and it is not acceptable. You've heard, and I won't repeat all of them, but the perceptions of people are that it is less safe. I think that is borne out by the activity we see. In particular, on Beacon Hill, one thing that wasn't mentioned, we were, as a neighborhood, victimized by an unregistered sex offender and serial criminal, a fellow named James Schaff, who was released from custody and immediately broke into 3 Charles Street establishments, each of those women-owned and operated. You can imagine the fear that went through those people to know that he was an unregistered sex offender. Now, through efforts of our neighborhood association, we were able to make sure that he was brought into custody, that he did some jail time, but then he was paroled without any notice to the community, except for one storeholder who happened to be able to register as a crime victim. In that regard, I feel it's very unfortunate that the district attorney's office is not represented here, as they are a key part of addressing the problems that we face. As other panelists have said, these issues have to be addressed by all of us working together. That's why in June, the Beacon Hill Civic Association convened stakeholders around the problem at the Appleton footbridge, and we appreciated the Boston Police Department, other aspects of city government, City Councilor Durkin, and others who participated in that, and we've seen improvement there. Similarly, we've started to see improvement on Boston Common, but it was only after things got absolutely out of control. And I was getting calls from neighbors, particularly from the Park Street School, but we also heard the example from the Beacon Hill Nursery School where a woman was pushed into a glass door and had to be taken to the emergency room at Mass General. I mentioned my kids went to Boston Public Schools. They used to walk to the Green Line to go to school, starting as 7th graders. I never had a concern for them doing so, and now I might be thinking differently. That is a change over where we're at. We're not looking to point fingers. I think everyone on the panel is looking for constructive solutions, and we've seen just from the short-term changes what some of those solutions are likely to be. Increased police presence. It seems to have worked, having gone through there in common, but we can't let down our guard. Also consistent with that, it's important that we find a role for the park rangers. Right now, all they seem able to do is call the police. We're paying them to do something. I think we need to expect something more of them than that and give them the tools with which to be able to act to protect the park that they're serving. We need better lighting. We need better surveillance. I believe cameras are coming in around the Brewer Fountain area, an area that used to be filled with food trucks and people enjoying lunches and music, and now is basically vacant, which is better than what the alternative was, which was drug dealing and open drug use. It's important that we keep up the cleanliness and the public space maintenance in these spaces. And overall, it's important that we provide services for the folks who, as was noted, are really being victimized out in these spaces. As a long-term resident of Boston, I think we feel the absence of the Long Island services, and I think we have to come up with solutions that are going to address those. We need to be able to have people come to Boston Common as our community and share in that space. Everyone who wants to be there and enjoy it safely. I remember as a longtime passer through, there was a guy named Mikey, and Mikey would always ask for change as you walked through, and he'd call you big guy as you walked through, and no one ever felt unsafe by his presence. He was unhoused, and that didn't make it unsafe, and he actually became such a member of the community that when he passed away last year, his obituary was in the Boston Globe. That's not what we're talking about, and we're not saying that the homeless need to be banished, but rather there need to be services brought to bear to these folks who really, really need those services. The vitality of downtown Crossing and Boston Common is key, not just to Beacon Hill, not just to downtown Crossing, but to the success of the city. If we are going to bring people back downtown to work and to enjoy the cultural opportunities that are there, they have to think it's safe. It's not just that it is safe, but they have to think it's safe. And so perception in this sense is reality. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak and happy to take any questions that councilors may have.
Thank you so much, Colin, and really appreciate our panelists for those opening remarks. At this time, I'd like to now move forward with councilor questions, starting with the lead sponsor. Councilors will have 7 minutes to ask questions, and then we will proceed. So, Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just want to clarify, I know one of my colleagues mentioned that I don't represent downtown Boston, downtown Crossing area. I do represent downtown Boston. I do represent downtown Crossing. I'm in that neighborhood every day. I talk to Rishi, I talk to Liz and to Mike, but I represent downtown Crossing. I just want to be clear on that issue. I understand that there's some confusion, but I wanted to set the record straight. Rishi, you had a poll that residents responded to, mostly on public safety, other quality of life issues. We were working with the pastor over St. Paul's on Tremont Street there, and she told me that it was the worst she's ever seen that particular area in 20 years. Is there a sense that residents are afraid to go out at night? That's what you're hearing? Or is it that we just have to do more, we just have to work together more to deal with these public safety challenges, concerns? What did you get a sense from as it related to your poll?
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. So we will, after this, share with you all the full version of the polling, including comments that came in, which I think are very insightful. What I'd say is that over the last 6 to 9 months, more and more residents who have to experience the neighborhood in the evening, if you have a puppy, if you have kids you're trying to pick up and, daylight savings, it's dark at 4:30, you avoid certain parts of the neighborhood because you understand them to be less safe. So, to be precise, Park Street, Tremont, right, Brewer Fountain, parts of Winter. Those are hotspots, Arch and Summer. We know those are hotspots, and so parents, nannies, caregivers, they're typically avoiding or told to avoid those parts of the neighborhood, daytime or evening. So, Councilor Flynn, I think it's a combination of folks feel less safe in those parts of the neighborhood because there has objectively been more crime and activity in those areas. But the totality of issues, when you're having to avoid parts of your neighborhood, that's not a good feeling or a good look for the city. And so we have to figure out how to clean up and activate the troubled parts of the neighborhood, and I think those are obvious in terms of what they are. And, look, we have friends who have dogs that they walk, myself as well, 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning through the common. You avoid certain parts of the common because there's a high likelihood of an encounter or a needle or human waste, and that's dangerous to both yourself and your pet. And so there's a combination of things at play here. It's obviously complicated.
Thank you, Rishi. To the Residents Association, incredible work that you guys are doing. Later this summer, there was a young woman on Boylston Street, on the corner of Boylston Street and Tremont Street. Asian woman, probably in her mid-20s, randomly punched in the face by a homeless man. I went with my assistant to visit the young woman who filed a police report. I think they broke her nose and broke her cheekbone as well. Police did a great job of responding. People came by to assist this young woman. Random violence. Random violence. Also, many Asians as well, Chinese especially, live in the downtown area, including a lot of elderly. They're afraid. They speak Cantonese. They call my office. My office can speak Cantonese and Mandarin, and they speak with the elderly, and they're afraid. At nighttime, they stay in. Liz, thank you for your important work, for your leadership. I've worked with you for almost 8 years and respect you and the team you have. We were at a ComStat meeting maybe several months ago with Rishi, with the residents. The police commissioner was there talking about crime stats, but there was a young woman also from your team, did a tremendous job of relaying some of the issues facing the public garden, facing the Boston Common as well. She mentioned that some performers or some theater people or some plays were rescheduled because of public safety concerns, or they had to be moved from one location to another. They had to be changed. How can we work together on those types of public safety issues? Certainly we need more police. That's something I've been advocating my entire life. But what else can we do as it relates to where you're from as a member of the Friends of the Public Garden?
Right. And Malika Shepard was that woman, and she just had to leave, our Senior Communications and Outreach Officer. I neglected to acknowledge her really important work she's doing. You know, we believe that these parks need to be welcoming to everybody, and one of our commitments this past summer, is to activate Brewer Plaza with, you know, 12.5 performances, and bring diverse performances from people from around the city, community-based singing and dancing, and we had people from Chinatown, people from East Boston coming to perform. People at Berkeley College came several times. And, you know, we talked to Marianne Ponte about this because Marianne, as many of you know, social work has been working on in these parks and on the streets for 10 years. This is the first year that she has felt concerned about her safety. We asked her about what we were experiencing because there are many of these events that were interrupted by people that were struggling. It was clear that there was a woman that was in distress. And we hired security people to work with our team to support them. They were not able to deal with this woman. The park rangers were not able to deal with this woman. She actually took all her clothes off and got into the Brewer fountain. And then the police had to come and finally, you know, encourage her to get back into her clothes and get back into a wagon and get some help. But that's just putting a patch on a big problem. I mean, we just kept doing it. Berkeley College finally realized that their students didn't feel safe, so they didn't come back for the rest of their concerts. Right. So I think that, you know, as I said in my remarks, it really isn't just, and you and I have talked about this, Councilor, it's not just adding more police, although when there is police presence, there's clearly a response by the people that are dealing drugs and creating havoc down there. They are subdued, they move elsewhere, they know the drill. They know that they're not going to be there if there's a police presence. But we can't have a police presence all the time. And I've talked to Captain Martin about this. When they arrest someone who has been, you know, had a repeat offense and they are getting off the park, there needs to be a stay-away order. And Rishi, you mentioned the DA's office too. I think, Mike, you mentioned as well. We need a collective response. The police, the DAs. Several years ago, we created a community impact statement. Many people wrote community impact statements. Somebody from the Union Club, a neighbor. You know, we had about 6 or 8 community impact statements that we wrote to the court saying, these individual people do not feel safe. And we're talking a while ago. This has been a low-level, constant problem. And until we get all of these players working together and committing themselves to that cyclical work, that this person that has had repeat offenses cannot come back, he has a stay-away order, and that is enforced, we're just going to continue to have these conversations, as you say, Mike. We're going to continue to come back and earnestly talk about the problem and not make progress. So we are there. We're available. We've worked with 24 groups over the many years that we've worked on these issues, and we all know that we want to have progress. So we're committed to doing that work with you.
Thank you, Liz. And I just want to say thank you to the gentleman as well from Beacon Hill. I was proud to represent Beacon Hill for 7 years on the city council and represent part of it, I should say. And I loved Beacon Hill. I loved spending a lot of time there working with the residents. I think this meeting is important. It's about listening to residents as well. I'm looking forward to the public testimony. The Residents Association had an important poll, listening to the business community as well. Many of the residents here have worked with me for 8 years on these issues, quality of life issues, public safety issues. I love the downtown area. I love the Boston Common. I spent my whole life and career in this area. About the last thing I'm doing is trying to fearmonger. I'm trying to be honest and direct and sincere with people and come up with solutions on how we improve it. I'm not here to criticize anybody. It's about working together and respecting each other. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you. And thank you, Liz, Mike, Rishi, Colin, for your testimony. I think it's exactly what we needed to hear, that, you're speaking truth to what the residents, the business owners, those who are there as much as you are saying. The little that I hear has been that things have really changed in the last year, and, so thank you for being honest. And also what I heard from all of you, and you said it specifically, Rishi, is like that challenge, right? That we have to collaborate, we have to work together. And I believe, we're the adults in the room, and that means we have to talk about the good things that are going on. In your role, Mike, you talk about the great things, and you don't want to turn away business or, tourists, but you also have to speak the truth, and sometimes that's not good facts, right? And there has been this message from the administration, about being the safest city. Born and raised here, raised my family here. I like to know that we're safe, but it is about quality of life issues, and if we're only using that metrics, about homicide and rape, and we're not talking about the issues that you all addressed, that people are failing around this neighborhood, they're changing the way they live based on changes to the safety in the neighborhood, and that's what I'm hearing. And as an at-large city councilor, and I know my colleagues work on these issues too, since I've been here, trying to uplift the voices of those who live near Clifford Park and Roxbury, those who live in the South End, I feel like, you're echoing what those residents have been saying, and often feel years have gone by, and just because things may get better, they know their lives aren't getting better. So we do have to come up with a plan. And when I heard that there was an increased presence of police, it came after another councilor was asking for an increased presence of police in his neighborhood who does see the homicides and wasn't being able to get that. So one question, and I know you guys can't answer it directly, but is that like a false sense of hope, right? Because how can we sustain that? Our police department is, for years now has been in a crisis with staffing. And, we want to hire more. It's hard to even get people to want to be police officers. So hoping to hear also that collaboration with the police and how do we sustain, the equity across the city. Obviously, downtown needs more of a presence, but making sure that we're addressing those issues in all parts of the city. And, what plan do we have going forward? So agree. One specific question, and I know speaking to some of the colleges, I'm not sure if any of them are here, so I don't want to put words in their mouth, but are you here? Okay. And when you send your children off to college, and many who go to the downtown colleges, they don't live in the neighborhood, so, there's always been a message to college kids to be safe, stay with a buddy, but that the message they're sending is different now. And to women and, young girls, like, don't go for a run, don't walk alone. And maybe some people will say, well, that's just common sense, but the fear and the crime that is happening out there really is changing the way. And I know parents are concerned for their kids, which, that's sad to know that, but we can't just say, let's just, be cheerleaders and then it goes away, because that's not how it goes away. It goes away by collaborating, working together. And all of you, and I'm going to make an assumption that everyone in this room, it's never about not wanting to care about those struggling with substance use and mental health, something I've cared about my whole life and will forever. But at the same time, we have to worry about the quality of life of every resident, every business owner, and how do we get to a place like that? And that means us on the council, we have to work together. I don't ever have to have arguments like Councilor Santana about where my district line goes, because I am an at-large city councilor. But even if I wasn't, I would say, as someone born and raised here, generations of loving this city, if you're in it for the right reason, it doesn't matter what street you represent, what neighborhood you represent. We're here to advocate to make sure that every city department is doing the best and the most they can, and what can we do. So I'm hoping through that challenge and that collaboration, we come up with a plan and seeing, I like to have a list of things to do. I work better when someone, tells me these are the things we need. So I'm hoping from this and knowing that And I can't say this is the beginning of a conversation. I started by saying that Councilor Flynn has brought me together with many of you on, meetings that he's organized on his own, because he does hear directly from the residents and is willing to have these conversations when things aren't going well. And I'm a strong advocate for the Boston Police, everyone knows that, but I'm also the first one to also push back and say, well, hey, why are we not doing what we know we can? We don't have to make new rules. We don't have to file new ordinances like the situation at Atkins Street with the tenting camp. And we already have laws on the books. Let's enforce the laws we have and make sure the police have the tools that they need to do that. But going forward, I think we have to work more collaboratively and listening more to, you're the experts. I'll end by saying one thing. As a teacher for over 20 years, no one ever really wanted to hear, what the teachers thought. It was always these people came in and told you how to do it better. So I think it's great that this panel and this hearing, thank you, Chair, for starting off with those who, work and live in the neighborhood and know directly and are uplifting. And like you said, it's a survey you do. There was a reason why people rushed to that survey. I get lots of surveys and I scroll by, but clearly they wanted their voices heard. They wanted people to know that this is a real concern. And when you're at St. Anthony's Shrine, could they be more kind? St. Francis, those people, their whole mission is about caring for everyone, and they're sharing their concerns that things are different and we need to do something. And we don't want it to be a homicide or something before it shouldn't have to only be that. That isn't where we need to put the line, in the ground where, unless it's a rape, unless it's a violent crime, we should just say, well, we're safe. Because if people don't feel safe, then their lives, and this came up with the BHA hearing we had recently about quality of life and elevator service. Like, life isn't just about surviving. Life is about enjoying it and having fun. And thank you to, the downtown and the Friends of the Park and all of these neighborhood associations. You work a lot and you care a lot, and the neighbors care a lot about, in your downtime, like enjoying this city, enjoying the parks, enjoying downtown. So I do think we have to make it so that people do come back in and feel not just safe, but are happy to be here and want to stay. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Durkin, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Chair Santana. And this has been a very illuminating hearing already. As the only city councilor that lives downtown in Beacon Hill, I can tell you this issue couldn't be more important to me. This is my neighborhood, and when I walk across the Tremont Street line, I don't think, oh, now I'm not in my district, because our communities are so important. Our walkability as a city and how our city connects with each other, and that connectivity is just so important to me. I want to thank Colin Zick, particularly the board president of the Beacon Hill Civic Association, for being here. Liz Visa, we've worked together so much. I know you're nearing retirement, so I'm so grateful we have gotten you right before, and we were getting to hear your wisdom right before you're off to your retirement, which we've been really proud to have a chance to celebrate on a few different occasions. It's so important, too, that we talk about local businesses and local residents. And Rishi, I know we haven't had the chance to really get to know each other much, but appreciated your testimony. There's a lot of really great stuff happening in the Boston Common. There's been so much work. I'm on the Boston Common Maintenance Fund, so I get the chance to look at the sewers and the sidewalks and the paving and all of that. So getting a chance to think about both the people that are inhabiting the area, the people that are hanging out in the Common, and the way that everything makes everyone feel is so important. So I think my first question is for you, Liz. Thank you so much for all of your leadership. Because you've been here 15 years, you have that special quality that none of us have. Would you describe some of the issues that we've been facing in the Boston Common as cyclical, or would you describe them as decline, or what would be the way that you described sort of the evolution of the Boston Common?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor. That's a good question. As I said, we have been working on this with the city for the 15 years I've been here and beyond. I mean, there's always been a low level of drug use and drug dealing on the Common and in downtown. It's not that all of a sudden it's happening. It wasn't happening. When I talked about homeless feeding programs, about 10 years ago, we spent a year, we convened with St. Francis House, St. Anthony Shrine, Park Street Church, St. Paul's Cathedral, Church of the Covenant, and feeding programs and other nonprofits that support the homeless and struggling population of our city. And we tried to make progress with that, tried to get people to stop feeding the Common.
Yeah, can you speak to that issue a little more?
Yeah.
Like why that can be a harmful thing and how that sort of elongates people's willingness to find real help?
So what they're not doing is they're not going into St. Francis House. St. Francis House is an incredibly qualified and comprehensive support place for people. It's a day shelter, but you go in there, you can get something to wear, you can have a rest, you can get some medical attention, and you can get a window through to the opportunity for support systems. Maybe you can even find a place to live, but just to have someone from the suburbs, to say, someone from out of the city to come in and think that they're saving souls by feeding people on the Common, it draws not only the homeless population, but the drug dealers. They come and prey on the people that are going to find that food, and then those people are not going into the St. Francis House, the St. Anthony Shrines, other service providers that could actually, again, they're not just giving them food, they're giving them an opportunity to find deeper support and the kind of care that they need. You mentioned the Long Island Bridge. It's been a crisis not having that bridge. I mean, we really need that. And even though the money that's going to go into that bridge will come out of the parks budget and other budgets, but I think that is such an important thing for the city.
Yeah, and I just want to add that I don't think I've been able to say this on the record, but new councilors did tour Long Island. Unfortunately, Henry had a hearing he had to run during the same time, but all of the new councilors toured Long Island, and we know that it's going to take billions of dollars to really get it, and over 5 years to even get a permit for the bridge. So these issues and all coming together and talking about them are so important, but there's real opportunity there. It's just going to take a lot of time.
Yeah, and I'll say it is cyclical. There were years when we could map where drug dealing was taking place. It was when Bill Evans was commissioner, and we met and talked to him and showed him, and we had mattresses in the Common, we've had tents in the Common. So it's not that nothing is happening and something's happening now, but there is an intensity of more violent, out of control. When the Marianne Pontes of the world, and I depend on her, I mean, I've walked with her a lot in the city to understand what she's doing and how her perspective working with these people. When she says she's concerned, I get concerned.
Thank you. And I think definitely my friends of the Public Garden know, and thank you, Leslie Adam, for being here as well, the board chair, know that I had a meeting with the commissioner. I think a lot of constituents were calling me about the concerns they had. The Park Street School was calling me. A lot of different organizations were sort of asking what we could do. And I I stomped my feet and said, I need to meet with the commissioner this week. And Commissioner Cox opened up his schedule, met with me for over an hour and a half. And I think what I really got out of that meeting was that, and then 2 days before, I had talked to the mayor on the phone and sort of described some of the things that were happening. I met with obviously our board president of the BHCA. I talked to him on the phone, talked to Leslie Adam on the phone. I had an entire week, like in late September, early October, of just really like constituents reaching out, really an uptick. And I think this hearing is a very important because what we're seeing, I think when I look around, I'm seeing a lot of downtown residents, and I'm seeing how maybe some of the progress that we've made in the Common has not been made in the downtown area. So while I have 46 seconds left, Mike, if you could talk to, and Mike is a District 8 resident, so I'm grateful you're here. Can you speak a little bit more to the streets that need activation and the areas that need foot traffic on the Boston Common, in the downtown area, and how maybe the city council and those that are connected with local business owners could help connect some of those spaces that need life to businesses that could support those spaces and create that activation that's needed?
Sure. Anyone that's interested in activating any part of downtown that wants to reach out to our organization can at downtownboston.org. I think the area of Winter Street and Tremont certainly, I think, is the epicenter of much of what we have struggled with over the last year, and that has been sort of the primary focus of our consideration of programming efforts that could try to dislodge or move away from some of the negative behaviors that we've seen.
And just curious, do you all have a survey of what spaces are open and why they're open and sort of what, and I know that there definitely are some developers that own on Bromfield and others that are not necessarily, that are just kind of waiting to develop areas that, and I think that vacancy that exists in the downtown area is detrimental. I do want to share the success of, I think, Temple Records and Somaic and so many of these incredible businesses that are opening that a lot of my District 8 residents are eating at, including me. And I think there's some excitement happening, and I think I really did want to use this hearing just to say that while we're dealing with a lot of issues, like I'd like to see more of those success stories and how can we build on those and how can we support you? You know, should I say Director Nichols? I don't know. But like, it's just, I think you are such an important piece of this puzzle. And often because of the way our district lines work, we don't always allow for that collaboration to happen. So I would love to meet with you about sort of some of those areas where I might be helpful in connecting local businesses to spaces that need activation and need retail. Because I know a lot of our District 8 and downtown residents are not getting their needs met with some of the sort of vacant spaces. And I know that you're doing everything you can, but would love to add some ideas and some collaboration there.
Sure. I'd say briefly, you know, we'd certainly welcome that engagement. Our organization, over the course of its existence, has predominantly, until recently, been focused on public spaces and outdoor public spaces. In recent years, we have started to focus on the problem of vacant retail, and increasingly now vacant office space. Bringing activation to those spaces downtown will develop more foot traffic, more people to support small business, more positive activity downtown. Anyone from anywhere that has an idea about what could support our downtown, our organization be willing to engage with them. It is, after all, everyone's downtown. Downtown has a vibrant array of residents that live there, but it's also the entire city's downtown. It is where we come together. It is literally downtown crossing, where our entire regional transit system was designed to bring people together. And so we would welcome any good ideas on how to do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Durkin. I do have just one question before we go to, we're going to take a break to go into public testimony. I know we have a lot of residents here, and I want to make sure that we give them the time, and I know my colleagues want to hear from the residents as well. Rishi, this is kind of just a general question, and I really appreciated your opening statement. You talked about some of the hotspots in the downtown and Boston Common area, and I think you touched on being safe, right? And I think with the helps with the different resources that we have, and then feeling safe, and that difference for residents. Again, you're on the ground, you're hearing from residents are hearing from you. In terms of that, let's assume we have all the resources, we have the police presence, that feeling of feeling safe. What do you think we as the city of Boston can do to get residents to trust that again, right? You talked about residents having to avoid certain areas. That's in their own neighborhood. That's not the way we want to be able to live, and not just in downtown, but in any neighborhood, right? So can you just talk about again that feeling of actually being safe with the resources that we have, but then also feeling safe, and what you're hearing from residents?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilor. I think perception is in the eye of the person experiencing the issues, right? It's your life experiences, it's how you think about the world around you and where you are at any given moment in time. And so if you've lived in a neighborhood for a long time and all of a sudden things are deteriorating and you feel like there's lawlessness, there's not law and order, you see folks getting away with criminal activity with no arrest, no consequence, they're back on the street within a few days. You see people, pillaging through CVS and Walgreens, and things are locked up. It doesn't feel like a safe place. Those things don't show up in any statistic unless you measure those things. And so where I have concern is when I keep hearing the same talking point from City Hall, which is we're the safest city in the country. We are, but again, you got to click in and understand the data that underlies that and what isn't included. And so specifically, Councilor, I think the perception is reality for anybody who lives in a place 24/7, right? Your experiences on the street, in the park, when you can't cross the street safely because you feel like if you're elderly or you got a wheelchair or you're in a stroller, a biker might hit you because they're going the wrong way down the street in a crosswalk. You're fearful, right? Councilor Flynn, you mentioned the Asian population. We have great relations with Chinatown. During COVID, when we had an increase in Asian hate crime in this country and in Boston as well, we had plenty of Asian residents who would say to us, hey, I'm fearful of going outside because I might get assaulted. That's fear. That's not going to show up in a statistic unless you measure it, right? And so the reality is law enforcement, we have, and I always say this whenever we have our colleagues from the Boston Police Department here, it's hard to find a neighborhood that's more supportive of law enforcement than you will in A1. We love the work that the Boston Police does every single day on behalf of our neighborhood in Beacon Hill as well, across the Common and across the Public Garden. There's no number of police officers that's going to cause you to feel safe if for a moment something happens or there's an incident or something causes you to feel unsafe. And so we have to, my advice is, yes, let's have more officers on the beat. Let's get out of our own way as a city. Let's restrict ourselves from imposing age caps and things like that that cause us not to be able to recruit folks into professions within the city where we have challenges bringing talent in. And so I think having more officers on the ground, fantastic. More folks on the beat, it's great. A1 does a great job, Sergeant Crosser and his team, being community facing all the time. And so many residents know our officers, which is great. Good community policing. But the erosion of trust and confidence happens when we don't have decisive action that's sustained. Again, I think these hearings are great. These meetings are terrific. But what I hope we don't do is walk out of here and then have to do this again in 6 months.
No, absolutely. Really appreciate that. Yep, I was actually going to ask, we do have another panel. Again, we also have public testimony. So I just want to ask any of my colleagues who are with us right now, including the lead sponsor, if they have any final questions for this panel right now. This would be your time. Do you have one, Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd rather go directly to testimony from the public, but thank you.
All right. Do you have?
Thank you. It was a great panel to start with, and looking forward to the public testimony. Thank you.
Do you have one, Councilor Durkin?
Yes. Thank you so much, Chair. Rishi, I wanted to ask you, sorry I ran out of time, but just curious about sort of the Office to Resi program. And I know a lot of what we're dealing with in Downtown Crossing is related to really office not being as utilized, especially Class B, just not being as utilized. And I was just curious sort of your thoughts on the Office to Resi program. And I know there's some stuff coming to Franklin Street, and I'm a big supporter of that program. So I'm just curious how, what you see as like sort of the future. And I think Mike Nichols, if you'd like to respond to that as well, but like what you all see as the future for both bringing people back downtown, but also how we can use those spaces differently.
Yeah, Councilor Durkin, great question. Thank you. I think anything we can do to increase housing in Boston is welcome. I think reality, though, is it's going to take time to convert things to residential. I also think the infrastructure matters, right? So if you're moving to downtown Boston and you don't have reliable public transportation, or you can't afford parking, or things that cause you to not be able to live here, that's not going to help the issue. And so we have to figure out holistically, how do we make housing more affordable? How do we get more of it? How do we ensure that we have better transportation, both public and otherwise? How do we make sure our streets are safe for everybody? The total package matters here. And I think getting people back to work is contingent upon us having public safety solved. I go back to what I said earlier, which is public safety underpins everything. And without it, it's going to be really hard to encourage anyone to want to move into a neighborhood if they don't feel like they have their safety, protected. And so it's complicated. That's the bottom line. But I'd love to see more of the conversions happen. If we could accelerate it, that'd be great. I'd love to see City Hall bring more folks back to work. I'd love to see our businesses bring more folks back to work. The trickle-down economics there are obvious. And so I think our businesses would benefit from it, and the city would certainly benefit as well.
I'd echo Rishi. I think the Office to Residential program is something that we fully supported. We look forward to having more of our owners explore that now extended program. to see if it's possible to bring more residents downtown. And then the issue of just bringing more people downtown generally is the one that we spend the most time thinking about each day. And to your question, colleagues of ours in Philadelphia did a national survey of the return to office rate. And the number one factor that most closely correlated with the frequency with which people were returning to their offices was how close they lived to that office. So if we were able to house more people closer to our job centers like Downtown Crossing and the Financial District, I think we'd see a higher rate of return to the benefit of all of our businesses, especially our small business.
Awesome. Thank you. I really want to appreciate our panelists for being here today and answering our questions, and for the work that you all individually do on this issue and on behalf of the downtown neighborhood, the Boston Common neighborhood, but also the city of Boston, so really appreciate that. I'm now going to we're going to take 4 public testimony out of order here as we're transitioning between panels. So again, I want to thank our panelists right now. And then we're going to go with John Parker, and please excuse me if I mispronounce your name, Sibel Basin, Slavko Miling, and Suzanne Claire. There are 2 microphones in the back of the chamber right here. If you can if those 4 people can come down, we will give you 2 minutes for your public testimony. Please state your name and your organization and neighborhood, and then we will move forward. With that, thank you so much. You have 2 minutes.
My name is John Parker, and I live at 1 Franklin.
Please make sure to speak into the mic. I know they're kind of, so we can all hear you.
My name is John Parker. I live at 1 Franklin Street, downtown. I walk my dog 3 times a day, down Washington Street, up Winter, across Tremont, past the Brewer Fountain, and into the Common. Now, 10 o'clock in the morning, there's 20 people loitering at Brewer Fountain. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's maybe 60. They're just loitering, and you should see the mess they make. It's unbelievable. Then at 8 or 9 o'clock, there's another 30 people, the same people probably, just hanging around Brewer Fountain. So I've been in contact with Mr. Flynn a number of occasions, and miraculously, over the last 4 days, I was in the Commons last week, in the middle of the week, and I saw 8 police officers walk through Brewer Fountain, okay? I was in the Commons today a number of times, and there was nobody at the fountain. There was absolutely nobody in the fountain. They're still coming a little bit down Winter Street and a little bit both sides on Tremont, but there was nobody at the fountain. And my question is, how can we maintain that?
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Sabio Basin.
We're a little out of order. I'm Susan Claire.
Oh,
okay,
sorry.
Thank you. Susan Claire, I've been in the neighborhood. I worked from the late 90s where I was working, and I've been a resident since 2002. My issue is more in terms of feeling safe is the transportation. I guess about 5 years ago, a provision was made for bike lanes, and I feel that the increase in the mopeds and the bikes going in the wrong direction, running red lights and then making illegal left turns, it's frightening, and I really would love to see the Department of Transportation take a very serious look at addressing that issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. All right. Next up, we have Solid Anambarikwa, Mohammed Jallo, Catherine Kennedy. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing names. Please state your name, and then you'll have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity for having us here today. My name is Mohammed Jallo. I'm the Director of Security at DW Boston. I'm here today with Jill and Bill, our General Manager for the Courtyard. So the area where we are, it's 500 feet away from the Boston Common, which is the Moxie's, W Hotel, and a few other theaters. The issue we're having there every night is vehicular traffic, and the combination of intoxicated patrons, heavy foot traffic, and dangerous vehicle driving. There's a frequent fight pretty much from Thursday through Saturday, every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. There's fights that are going on. Boston police is there. So before the pandemic, around 2019, 2020, Boston Police used to block that intersection between the Stewart and Tremont Street to stop all vehicular traffic, to reduce accident in that area and try to curb the noise, because now we're having patrons driving down there, stopping their vehicles and play very, very loud music, which in turn create problems for our resident and hotel guests every day. So we're asking for them to go back to reinstate that pandemic traffic block that can help us. This will enhance the public safety by reducing risk of accidents and altercation, and it can improve our guest experience and residents and tourists. New England School of Law, which is right next to us, are also suffering the same issues, and they sent us constant emails to come here today and talk to the team. So hopefully that will be like a win-win for every one of us. So the solution for us is we want this to promote a safety without dampening the vibrant nightlife that defines the area. This area is the most busy area in the city of Boston. We are surrounded by at least 6 to 7 nightclubs in that area there. So blocking the street at night, just like we used to do before pandemic, that will help us big time. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, I'm going to call 3 names, and if you're here, please say your name,
Sure.
and then we'll give you 2
Hi,
minutes.
my name's Catherine Kennedy.
Okay.
And I also have extra copies that I was asked to bring if you guys would like those.
All right, thank you.
So I'm going to read a short letter. To whom it may concern. Size 3 diapers. Extra wipes. An extra onesie. And a sharps container. That's what I get to carry in my diaper bag. My name's Catherine, and I live in the Beacon Hill neighborhood and have for over a decade. I have 2 small children, ages 5 and ages 7 months, and I pass discarded needles regularly as I walk my 5-year-old to her public school every day. My oldest started pre-K on September 9th. This morning, I decided to glance over some of my 311 reports. Reminder, September 9th, first day of school. I have needle pickup reports from September 30th, October 7th, October 9th, October 11th, October 12th, and October 15th. That's just the first month of my daughter going to public school. I accept that raising a family in the city is complicated. I accept trash, cigarette butts, nip bottles, and even broken glass. But this is unacceptable. Having to keep needles away from my kids as I walk them to preschool is unacceptable. In the 10 years that I've lived here, I have never seen Beacon Hill and downtown neighborhoods in Boston this overrun with drug paraphernalia or folks in crisis. Boston and the surrounding region is not doing enough to actually disrupt the cycle of addiction that has led to this crisis. We keep moving the problem instead of solving it, and we need actual solutions. The heart of this crisis is not about just housing. At its heart, it's around behavioral health and vulnerable people. I feel for the folks who are struggling with addiction. I truly do. They are victims. They need a solution which separates drug dealers from drug users. And we need a solution that separates drug use and folks in the hose of behavioral health crisis from average citizens, including children and the elderly. We are failing our most vulnerable. We need a solution that puts safety first. And our current course is unacceptable and is currently failing everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, for coming and joining us today. All right, so we're going to go with our second panel, and then we're going to continue with public testimony after this round of questions. So at this time, I'd like to provide an overview of the panelists, the committee invited to testify on behalf of the administration. If you can all, if you're here and present, if you can just all come down and sit here with us. We have invited Lisa Mayer, the interim commissioner for the Department of Parks and Recreation. We have Captain Sean Martin, district commander for A1 for the Boston Police Department. Sergeant Zachary Crossan, Community Service Officer of A1 with the Boston Police Department, Kelly Young, Director of the Coordinated Response Team, and then Deputy Superintendent Dan Humphreys, Assistant Chief, Bureau of Field Services, and Boston Police Department. For the panelists who are here with us today, I'd like, again, for you to come down, sit down with us here, and then state your name, title for the record, and once everyone has introduced themselves, we will move forward with opening statements. So, thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Deputy Superintendent Dan Humphreys. I'm the Assistant Bureau Chief of Field Services for the Boston Police Department.
Thank you. You're here a lot. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, thank you.
Good afternoon, Councilor Steve Bickett, Deputy Commissioner Parks for the City of Boston, here instead of Liza Meyer today.
Okay. So you're here representing the Department of Parks and Recreation, right? Great. Can you describe your name again?
Steve Bickerton.
Steve Bickerton. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for being here. With that, I'll hand it over right back to you if you have any opening statements or remarks that you all want to say, and then we'll go around of, we'll pass it over to the council colleagues here for a round of questions.
Sure, no, it's always my pleasure to be here on behalf of the Commissioner. The Boston Police Department is in the middle of a very deliberate pivot to address exactly what we're here talking about today. So there's a lot of things that are happening across the city, and some of them come back to the decampment of Mass and Cass. So we're dealing with the displacement and overflow. We're reorganizing to support the coordinated response teams in our response to the pockets of overflow throughout the city, not only downtown, but in areas like Nubian Square in Roxbury, Mattapan Square is seeing activity, Andrew Square in South Boston. So the Boston Police Commissioner is hearing what people are saying. We are doing a very intentional redeployment of officers into these areas of community concerns. And what we are doing is we're endeavoring to significantly increase our visibility and put the same effort that we put into reducing our violent crime and victimization rates into addressing quality of life issues, specifically addressed at the fear of crime that people are feeling. And it's a very intentional department-wide program that we're in the middle of a giant pivot on to put officers on foot in these areas, increasing visibility for the very deliberate intent to address these quality of life issues and also make people feel safe in their neighborhoods.
Great, thank you. Steve, do you have anything?
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here, councilors. At Parks, we're very aware of the issues that exist both in the Common, the Public Garden, and as well as many of the parks around the city as a result of the opioid epidemic and associated mental health issues and that type of thing. Our role at the Parks Department is, unfortunately, we don't really have enforcement capabilities. We do lean on BPD and others for the enforcement capability. We're very grateful for their partnership, very grateful for their responsiveness across the city. Our role is generally to keep the parks as clean as possible. So when our staff identifies an encampment or a person in crisis or paraphernalia left behind, our staff identifies that. We then alert either the SHOPS team, the coordinated response team, or BPD for help to either move the individuals along or remove the dangerous paraphernalia, and then our staff comes in afterwards to clean up any debris left behind. So our staff is generally a maintenance and cleaning crew more than an enforcement crew. However, we're very attuned to the quality of life issues, completely understand what the panel before us testified to, sympathetic to those issues, and we'll continue to work closely with the CRT and BPD to remedy them as quickly as possible.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate you both being here. With that, we're going to go over to the lead sponsor with his first round of questions, and then we'll go along. Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to Deputy Superintendent Humphreys. I've had the opportunity to work with you for many years and respect the work that you and the men and women of the police department are doing, along with Steve as well, an outstanding and dedicated city employee, member of the Parks team. They play a critical role in the Boston Common. Steve, let me ask you a question. At one time, the Boston Park Rangers, they do a tremendous job. They work closely with the Boston Police, with the tourist industry as well. At one time, they did have more authority, including arrest power. And when they had that arrest power, they were more effective, in my opinion. Other people will disagree, but I've seen them up front. They did a terrific job when they had the power to make arrests. They used it very cautiously, but they did a tremendous job. They were professional. That has impacted public safety, hasn't it?
I couldn't agree with you more. Our park rangers are dedicated, and they're great employees. They work very hard. It is a challenge that they lost the police powers that they had under the 400A rule. For those that don't know, the 400A rule allowed them to go through a certain amount of training with Boston Police and to be designated as special police, so they had arrest powers. Since 2021, with the creation of the Post Commission and some changing of the laws around police certification, they, as well as some other city law enforcement agencies, smaller law enforcement agencies, lost their police powers. They do have the ability to write civil citations, and they do have the ability to do parking enforcement, and they can also obviously engage with folks and educate them about parks ordinances and that type of thing. But they did lose their arrest powers. That's correct. I think. Still, the Rangers work very hard. They do a lot of walk and talks, a lot of face-to-face engagement on the Common and in other parks. And in the event that they do encounter a problematic person or a person in crisis, then they do call BPD, and BPD is always extremely responsive to them. We appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Steve. And I do know the park rangers, even without those arrest powers, they do a tremendous job in the public guard and in the Boston Common. I want to acknowledge the men and women of the Parks Department as well that clean the park every day. I love talking to them. They work hard. They're dedicated. They're professional. Maybe it's something for the City Council to review on how we could possibly get the police power back for the park ranger. They do an incredible job. I think it's worth it for us to pursue how we're able to get the police, restore the police arrest powers back to the park rangers. Thank you, Steve, and on to Dan, and to Deputy Superintendent. Deputy Superintendent, we also have seen many people from the Mass and Cass area come from that area, pushed into the downtown area, into the Boston Common. I represent the public library as well over towards Copley. I represent Chinatown. Are we seeing that type of organized criminal activity? Are we seeing that organized drug dealing activity in and around the Boston Common, or is it users that are selling drugs? That's one thing, but when we have people that are selling it for a profit in preying on vulnerable, that's another thing, including, and I've talked to the Boston Police Department, including human trafficking taking place in the Boston Common. So I want to say thank you to the men and women of the Boston Police. I work with A1 almost every day, whether it's in Chinatown or in the downtown area. What are your thoughts on Boston Common, Superintendent?
Well, I think there's a lot of things going on there. I think, like some of the public comments, there's always been a certain amount of activity that's taken place there. With the decampment at Mass and Cass, and we all knew what went on down there. I mean, humanity wept for what was going on down there. The encampment had to be displaced. There's 140 residents, active human trafficking. It had to go. One of the problems is there's the power of fentanyl. People have to get high like 5 times a day. It just takes you over. So the victimization is so difficult when somebody is in the grips of that to break them out of it. So there will be drug dealers that prey on that. And like you said, there are people that are active users that the drug dealers will use to put into these hotspots because it's risky for them to go in there. So they give you drugs and give you the rest to go sell, and they're using people that are users. It's like a double victimization. So it's a very complex, criminal investigation to follow that up the chain to get to the higher up person. I can say that with the pivot on how we have displaced a lot of the mass and cast, the congregate drug use that we were seeing there became a barrier to outreach. It was no longer safe for individuals to go in there. Recovery coaches, basic housing advocates, all of the above. By displacing it into smaller pockets, it allows us to get resources in on a more one-on-one, more individualized case management. Obviously, that's going to displace some of that activity into places where we didn't see it before. Like I said, immediately we saw activity in Nubian Square, Andrews Square, the South End, and that's what has led us to listening to what people are saying and saying, this is where the problem, the commissioner is very clear. He's like, we don't need to guess where the problem is. People are telling us.
Right.
This is where we're going to put people, and it's an all-hands-on-deck approach as far as visible presence, drug investigations. We're looking at another thing that has come up here is a very deliberate analysis of where we're getting 311 complaints or community complaints about needs for traffic enforcement. Something that we haven't heard for a while. There was a time where people wanted us to back off, and now we are hearing clearly the pendulum is swinging the other way. Every community meeting we go to, even Community Comstead, we had the pleasure to see you at the other night. The community is saying we want traffic enforcement. We don't have to guess where we need to put traffic enforcement. The community is telling us. So not only addressing quality of life issues as it relates to things like the commons, drug dealing, assisting the homeless and stuff, but also bringing back a feeling of safety. The deployment that we had for the scooters and stuff like that over the summer and into the fall, we saw immediate feedback on that. Compliance through the roof, like almost an immediate change. But it took enforcement. It took a lot of work to do that.
Right. Well, thank you, Deputy. And that was an issue I focused on over the summer, working with the Back Bay and South End residents, is the scooters. Rishi described the downtown area at times like the Wild West. And what I believe in is we have to enforce the law on the books, zero tolerance, but we also need the support of the district attorney in our criminal justice system. When someone commits a crime and is found guilty, they should be sentenced to either jail or prison. We can't have people back out on the streets preying on people. Residents pay high property taxes. They paid huge money for their condo. Sometimes they send their children to private schools. They expect and deserve a good quality of life for them and their family. And the areas you mentioned, Deputy, where we have a lot of drug trafficking, they're also in my district. I live near Andrews Square, near the South End, the downtown area. But we do need more police presence on the street. We need to hire more police. We can't cut the police budget like we tried to in the past. And I think we have to have a criminal justice system that respects victims and residents is also a critical part of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Ed took my question, Steve, or I was going to highlight, I know we talked about that, about the park ranger's abilities now, so those have been stripped, but I saw a few of them last night at the trellis lighting and anytime, down at Christopher Columbus Park, but they do a great job. But in a time when we have such a hard time trying to get police and get the staffings up, it may be something we should revisit.
And
But-
I'm sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
go
Don't get me wrong. I still think that, having our park ranger unit is still extremely beneficial.
Absolutely.
Just their presence alone in the parks, serving as eyes and ears, serving as goodwill
agree.
ambassadors, and also, a friendly face to tourists and visitors that they don't know how to get to the USS Constitution or find their way to the Freedom Trail. The park rangers still very much serve a purpose, even with that, with those powers
No,
having been removed.
absolutely. Are there staffing or issues, because I know when there was, outcry in, say, Clifford Park, and then we found ways to, have more of a presence, do more cleanups. Are you seeing that there is a need and then a staffing need attached where you're having to pull resources to address some of these issues that seem to have gotten worse over the last year or so?
In the ranger division or
Or
maintenance?
no, just in the parks, the 2 parks there.
Sure, I think, like a lot of city departments, we definitely have staffing challenges, especially some of our lower paid positions, park laborers and mechanical equipment operator laborers. We definitely have staffing challenges and high turnover, just due to the lower pay, and folks come in those jobs, and then they want to move up and make more money. Could we use more maintenance staff? I'll never turn down maintenance staff. I'll never turn down ranger positions. Of course, we'd always be happy to staff up with those. We're extremely grateful. You mentioned Clifford Park, to the partnership with the New Market Bid, Sue Sullivan and Carol Costello and their group. Their partnership has been absolutely invaluable. They focus on that area. They focus on Clifford Park. Their staff is out there supporting our staff with cleanups. Our Roxbury team, they're in dozens of parks every day, so they can only dedicate so much time to each individual park. Obviously, a park like Clifford demands a lot more attention than others. So we're extremely grateful to Sue and her group for their support there.
Thank you. Chair, was there a reason why Kelly Young or the coordinated response team did not attend?
Yeah, I actually don't know, Councilor. But we will, if there's any questions that any of my colleagues have, happy to send it over to them.
Because I know from just the work down at Atkins Street that long before the tents came down, there were advocates and nonprofits and employees, but also city employees, public health employees who were pulling out and no longer going down there for their own safety. And I know, speaking to Mary Ann Ponte directly, but it was said by many of the previous panelists that, someone like her in this area now too is fearful for her safety. So it definitely seems like we're at a different level here. People who are very accustomed and comfortable and have the tools and the skills to work with this population that is needs people to be there as feelings for their own safety. So I think it would be helpful. And you did mention that this commissioner kind of has a new plan. Could you be specific on any of the changes that he's hoping to implement to see some good change?
Sure. The gentleman who walked his dog, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. He saw exactly what is happening. So there's a community interaction groups in certain districts, and downtown is one of them, where we are taking a group of officers, and your job is to, in a group, get out on foot in areas of community complaints. Real simple.
And that ties to calling 311 and 911, right? So that we have the data?
So,
Just another, reminder to the public
Oh, yes,
that
yes.
definitely don't think anything is too small, because that's where
Right.
you would send those resources based on the calls that are coming in, correct?
yes, and interestingly, we are directing our officers when you see something that is not a Boston police agency, that we're directing our officers to put in 311 complaints for things as well. So if there's needles in the park or a broken street light, overflowing trash can, they are to put that in as well, so it increases the message traffic, and they cut the line, and so that concern gets addressed immediately by another city agency.
That's good to know. I have no other questions. Just thank you for all you do, and I think it definitely is going to need to be this partnership going forward. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Durkin, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. And Deputy Superintendent Steve, so great to see you. I'm really grateful for both of your leadership. I think parks and police are definitely, when I think about what my constituents ask me for the most, it's talking to you all and figuring out solutions that work for them. So just want to, Deputy Superintendent Humphreys, I know that you were part of the meeting that I had with Commissioner Cox on October 4th, and just wanted to ask sort of what conversations leading up to that, and sort of what sort of conversations had been happening with the police department, especially in September and October, to lead to sort of this new strategy, especially around the Brewer Fountain area. And I just wanted to also ask a little bit more about the cadet and training program. I know some of those officers or cadets were at my official Thanksgiving dinner last night, and I'm really supportive of that program, but just want to know a little bit more about how they might be utilized in this respect.
Sure. Yeah, so, as it relates to just kind of the overall issue of just the homelessness, folks on the street, substance abuse crisis, mental health crisis, and all of the complexities of that. And we've been so hyper-focused on the Mass and Cass, right? So it was like the big red spot on the map, right? A lot of real heavy resources, coordination. I mean, if you look back on what went into that and, the ordinance, I think the ordinance was a very critical part of it because it gave finality.
Proud to support it.
Oh,
Yes.
well,
yes,
thank you, ma'am.
yes.
But there was a lot of conversation that went into that, and there was a lot of people that were worried that the cops are going to run around and arrest everybody ripping tents down. Like, we didn't touch a single tent. We haven't arrested a single person. But what it does is in that interaction, it gives finality. These are your options, this or that. Before, it was a 48-hour notice period and all this. But anyways, a lot of effort has been put into that. And one of the things that we have to do is take a big step back from that. And now look at the whole city and look at how this is affecting other places of the city. And a number of things are going on with the crime stats and all this other stuff. And just plainly put, in that meeting, to anybody who's listening, you were an advocate for your district. I can tell you, I was there for a lot of it, and you were very, like I said, you were advocating for everybody. And the commissioner is hearing people about the fear of crime issue and quality of life. And what he's made very clear is, look, I'm not worried about the numbers, personnel shortage, this, that, and the other thing. We're doing this. We're going to change fundamentally how we are deploying our officers, right? And not to go off on a wild tangent, but this is going to affect recruiting. The strongest recruiting tool we have is an individual officer interacting with a member of the public on the street, because all of us, before we became police officers, met a police officer. And
my sister was one, so that's partly why I'm such an advocate for this work.
And that person had effect on us, and that's why we became police officers. So there's so much going on here, but it's about making the community feel safe. It's about getting officers out on the street, interacting with members of the public, making arrests where appropriate, all of these things. It's going to make people feel safe. It's going to increase our positive interaction with the public. It's going to result in increased recruiting efforts, like all of the above. But the commissioner, in these conversations, has been listening to what people are saying, and we are adjusting. In areas that we've done this, we have gotten immediate feedback. We see clear. Bowdoin and Geneva, when the officers get in their vans and drive away, it's almost like they want to tie a chain to it. And you know what I mean? 16 hours a day, and we have multiple, and it's community interaction teams. That's what the CIT stands for. They might change the name on it. Where we are deploying these, we are seeing immediate positive feedback. So we might be at step 2 of a 20-step process of where this ends up, because like the gentleman says, how do we make this basically happen forever? And that's what the commissioner, this is the beginning. He wants increased visibility, officers out of their cars, in the community, in areas of community concerns, interacting with the public, interacting with the folks that need interaction, right? Addressing quality of life issues. There's going to be arrests. It's not always, roses.
No, it really is music to our ears, because I think when we think about how people need to interact, it's like, I think being in a car is a little bit different than being like on the pavement. And I do appreciate like every bit of car interactions that people have as well. But I think I think that Boston is a leader on community policing. We have the term Boston's finest for a reason, and I think they're doing an incredible job at the Boston Common. I've heard from residents that they feel that the police department is using its resources right now in the right way, and that's why I think it's really important that we make sure that that is spread all over A1, because it does feel like, when we heard from residents here today, that there are some areas that they feel like need a little TLC. So I do appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to hear from residents about this sort of broader context. And I did just want to add my support. It was great to hear from my colleagues that they support the Boston Mounted Park Rangers. I love them, love their board chair, Alex Leventhal, grateful for all of his work. I should have worn my pin today, but I think we're dealing with an environment and a jurisdictional environment where we can't control every bit of the way the state interacts, and so I know we can't fix that at this level of them having special police powers, and I know the BHA has dealt with that as well. But I just want to say I'm really grateful to the commissioner and the mayor for stepping forward at this time and figuring out. I know it's constantly, in terms of the police, conversation about, when there are protests, often that's when sort of things get pulled off their regular beat to handle certain other things that are happening. And I do trust the police department to try to make those decisions of like where we need activity and where and when we need activity. I really appreciate, just want to add, I appreciated there was a time when sort of the gang unit was involved and in the Common, and it's great to hear about the CIT program. And I'm not, I didn't do special operations for the police department, so I really do, Deputy Superintendent, trust your and others' judgment about how and when, but I do think it's important that when we have the ability to, we advocate for our communities and what they're asking for. And so grateful for your leadership and the commissioner, and I think this conversation is really important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Durkin. I have just a few follow-up questions. Thank you to my colleagues for amazing questions. Steve, I think we heard from a public testimony earlier about some of the needles that we're seeing on the ground, walking around downtown Boston, the Boston Common. You in your opening statement talked about the Parks Department, their role being mostly of maintaining the parks. Can you just speak to what you do with what your department does with needle pickup, and how often? And can you speak to any of that?
Sure. I would say that our staff in one park or another, we encounter needles daily. Not always in the Common, not always in the downtown parks, but not infrequently. Our staff do have sharps containers that they have with them in their vehicles. However, if they come across a larger encampment where there may be other biohazards, at the site, then we work with an outside contractor that is specialized in cleaning up those type of sites safely as well. So that's so their SOP is to, if they find an encampment or find a site, if there's one or two needles, then our staff can put on their gloves and use the shops container to pick them up. However, if it's a larger encampment, then they will alert myself. I work daily with the CRT. I sit on the CRT in that morning call. So typically I'll get a call from our maintenance staff at maybe 7:30 or 8 in the morning that we found an encampment, or there's there's a lot of needles at a certain site. Can we please have CRT and the shops team come in to pick that up? So that's typically the way things go.
Great. No, thank you. And then I think I definitely want to give a shout out to the Rangers, the park Rangers. And I think to my earlier question about being safe and feeling safe, I know I've heard from many people about, the park ranger's presence at least makes them feel more safe. That doesn't necessarily mean they are safe, but I think both of them are important, and shout out to all of our park rangers.
Thank you.
Also, do you want to do a second round of questions? Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Steve and to Dan as well. Deputy, one of the areas where is of concern to me as well is across right here, City Hall Plaza, and the area across the street from the New England Center for Veterans on Court Street. A lot of violence, a lot of drug dealing activity taking place in both areas. Years ago, I used to like talking to the veterans that would sit on the MBTA stoop there, because I tried to give them some encouragement over the years, and they were in a great facility. But now the veterans don't sit around there because the drug activity is so obvious. A lot of the veterans from Court Street don't sit across the area too from the center because of the ongoing drug dealing activity and violence over the last several months. Talk about those two specific areas, and I have conversations with A1 as well, and they are working on it. But tell us what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think that these are exactly what we're talking about, these locations where we have this type of activity, complaints from the residents of the veterans shelter and stuff like that. This is a perfect spot to layer in these high visibility patrols that we're talking about, and address the criminal activity that's taking place there, and have a very visible presence, so people can feel safe. I mean, City Hall Plaza is also a place that people come visit, just like the Commons. And it's a cut through to go to Faneuil Hall and all of the above. So it's not only the individuals that are relaxing on the stoop or whatever, it's people coming and going from the subway station. So this is a perfect location to layer in those visibility patrols.
Thank you, Deputy. I don't have any further questions. Just want to say thank you. I did hear from a lot of Beacon Hill residents about those particular areas, so thank you to the men and women of A1.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Murphy?
No more questions, just thank you.
Great, thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Durkin, do you have any final questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really kept everything I said at this hearing in regards to the docket, but I do have an op-ed coming out tomorrow about all I want for Christmas is scooters off our sidewalks. So I just want to thank everyone that has testified or emailed about scooters and mopeds. I think those issues are particularly important, and I do think there's an element of public safety, and feeling safe means feeling safe walking around in every single way. And I just want to thank Deputy Superintendent Humphreys for all of his work on, and also Chief Franklin Hodge, who I know we were in a small group with immigrant advancement and the police to start that sort of impounding of unlicensed and unregistered mopeds. So I appreciate all of the work that's been done on that issue. And just want to thank, again, both of you for being here.
Thank you, Councilor Durkin. With that, that concludes our round of questions with our panelists. Really appreciate both of you being here and answering our questions. We are going to move forward with public testimony. You are both welcome to stay either there or in the chamber as well, but really appreciate both of you being here. With that, we are going to call public testimony. Unfortunately, I do have another commitment that I am going to have to go to. I have class, folks, and I'm over at Suffolk, and I don't want to be late, so I am going to pass it over to the lead sponsor and the district councilor, Councilor Flynn, to continue this hearing. But by no means is that I really care about this issue. I really care about this neighborhood, and I really care about supporting our district councilors and our residents in public safety. So with that, thank you so much. I'll pass it over to Councilor Flynn to continue with public testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the important work that you are doing also, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coordinating and working with me on this meeting. It was very helpful. Your team was very professional. I'm going to call some residents that are here to provide public testimony. I do apologize if I get any order inaccurate, but I am here. We do want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to weigh in no particular order. And when I call your name, if you could come down. Brett Leave, Ryan St. Marie, okay. Is there Brian Harbor here as well? Is there Daniel Urell? I'm sorry. Yep, David. David, why don't you go now, okay?
Sounds good.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is David Urell. I live at 1 Franklin Street. I've lived in Boston since 1994, with the exception of about 7 years in the middle where I couldn't afford it. I love Boston. I love New England. I'm a huge booster of the city, and I'm terrified of what's happening in downtown. I've lived in the downtown crossing area for the better part of, essentially since about 2008. So a fairly long period of time, and I remember walking past the Vornado real estate ditch, which is now Millennium Tower. I remember the challenges back then. But in the last year, things have really started to deteriorate, and it's taken on an air of lawlessness. Mm-hmm. I think the survey really kind of captured what's going on. Very little is actually being documented in terms of the problems that exist. I'm going to share 3 experiences that I've had in the last 9 months, indirectly through a friend visiting me and through my partner who happens to be here, Shannon. My college roommate was visiting. He lives in the South End. He's been a resident of the city since 1991. He left my place at about 10 p.m., went up Winter Street, and was robbed of his backpack with his gear in it. He's a fit 6'4" person. He chased a kid, went around a corner, and was met with 5 other kids. And he gave up on his backpack at that point. That incident was reported to the police. The other one with my partner, coming down Bromfield, I'm going to guess at the time of night, it wasn't late at night, it was in the evening, was met by somebody masturbating in a doorway. That's pretty scary stuff. That doesn't get reported to the police. Recently, 3 weeks ago, she came home probably 7:30 at night, had been walking from the Avery Street back to 1 Franklin down Washington. It's a fairly busy time of the evening, and somebody approached her and followed her for a block, put their arm around her, and she's a little 5'4" person. Breaks my heart that she has to deal with that. It doesn't get reported to the police. If anybody here has ever been to the Boston Police Department to report a crime, by the way, which is right over here on the other side of this building, you'll know it's not very welcoming, it's not convenient, and it doesn't really have a feel that anything's going to get addressed. I would love to see a Boston auxiliary post somewhere on the Common, there at the corner of Winter Street and Tremont. I think we had that in the past, maybe. I think something like that might actually make police more visible and more accessible to the public. I want to appreciate all the people that have come out here today. It's great to see the associations, the neighborhood associations, because they bring us together to have this conversation that really has to be had. And on the scooters, I think we need some language to define which groups we're talking about. We've got the wheelie scooters in the summertime, which are scary and dangerous because they're going to knock somebody over and give them a TBI. We've also got the electric scooters on the sidewalks, and then we've got the food delivery guys that run every which way all day long. But thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's my rant.
No, thank you. I'm going to go to virtual testimony. Is Brett or Ryan available to testify?
Yes.
Is that Brett?
This is Ryan.
Oh, hey, Ryan, how you doing?
Hi, Councilor Flynn. First, I want to thank you for bringing this meeting together. As you said, my name is Ryan St. Marie. I represent the One Charles Association, who brought some of these concerns to your attention and to other councilor and city officials' attention in the past. I want to echo the concerns that you brought forth prior in outlining these safety concerns. I personally walked through Boston Common recently, and I just find it more and more concerning, especially around Boston. So it's good to see that we're finally focusing on it and doing some action. Not to discredit all the work that's been done before, it's reassuring that we are still among the safest cities in the country, but I think we do need to work forward and maintain that status and do whatever we can to maintain that status. I know that's, we've had residents of our condominium that have been victims of crimes in the Boston Common. So I think it's really something we need to address and find ways that we can forward and put some ideas into action. And I also echo some of the concerns regarding the motorists around. That's one of the concerns that is brought to my attention quite frequently is motorists, the Uber drivers, the delivery people that are just constantly going around the streets. So to address that and put in some safety laws and follow them. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for being here. Brett, you're up next. Brett's not there. Okay. Is Allie Foley there, please?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Allie.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Councilor Ed Flynn. I just wanted to just give a couple remarks and maybe share a little bit of empowerment to the community. I received an inbound email back in September with a mother who was walking through the Bureau Fountain and had experienced these experiences that we're talking about today. And I want to thank Ed because I didn't know what to do with it. I live in Back Bay and I volunteer helping out with the block captain program over here. And it's great when I get inbound emails and then be able to triage them to the correct people. And I can't commend enough to you, Ed, for taking the leadership on this. It has been very reassuring to the Back Bay community to hear your responsiveness and elevating the concern. I also want to push back to the community and let them know to get more involved in their civic associations and, look at ways that the community can make this a more topic conversation and making sure that, your legislators, your local community representatives know that this is intolerable, that we will not stand for this and we deserve better. So I just wanted to put some remarks out there. We're doing pretty well in a block captain program here in Back Bay. I encourage other communities to get involved and be able to be the liaison to your residents to reach out to then triage these important calls and experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie, for being with us. Yusuf, are you on?
Yes, sir. Hello. Thank you for having me tonight.
It's good to be with you, Yusuf.
Hello?
Yeah, good to see you, Yusuf. We are sorry
Yes,
we cut out for a couple seconds.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Thank you for facilitating it. My family owns Black Seed Halal Grill. We're over at 140 Tremont Street. We've been on the block between Temple Place and Winter for over 25 years now. The public safety problem downtown has severely affected our business directly. People congregate all day, all night, consuming drugs, selling drugs. People play loud music all day, all summer. It has calmed down a little bit in the last couple weeks. I would say, though, that just from being here for years now, it's definitely seasonal. As it gets colder, we have less of this activity going on. And then in the summer, it ramps up again. If it's okay, I would like to share my screen. I have like a folder of some of like the images and things that we've collected over the last year or so.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Yusuf.
So this was a window that we had broken based from somebody who was using drugs in the lobby right in front of our store, and he just fell over and just shattered our window. We had 3 windows break last year. One was from this incident. One was from a fight that happened outside, and somebody else got thrown into the window and shattered it as well. There was like some construction going on, and we had just constant people were just standing outside. It turned into, I believe we had a meeting this day actually, or like the day after, and the scene outside was really bad. People are using drugs in public. The sidewalk is blocked. You can't even get through. Customers coming to and from our business, passing by. Like, we're trying to sell food and like have an environment for people to, enter our business and patronize our business. And people don't feel safe enough to make these kinds of, look into the store. And if they've never been before, come check us out. It's really bad. This is at nighttime. This is last May. This scene was basically every night for the whole entire summer. Mm-hmm. So the spring and summer, like people couldn't pass through the sidewalk, as you can see, and people just hang out. And it's a lot of criminal activity happens outside. People are scared to come in. I think in this video you'll see, so people walk through, and it's just it's literally a hazard. Like people can't just be. There's only so much sidewalk that's available. And people are just blocking it. And when the police come by, it disperses very quickly. And the Boston police do a great job of when there are issues, like it clears out, as you can see in this video. But it's a lot to keep up with. There's another window we had. I worked the night shift for a few months this summer, and every night I would come out, and this is like, it's an emergency exit for the MBTA, I guess. This platform is full of trash every single night. So I would come out, everybody has went home, the block is empty, but it's full of trash. There's like all kinds of disgusting stuff, and I think it's the bid, but there's the downtown people, they come every night and they clean it up. And it's like clockwork, it's like 2, 3 in the morning. It's a lot of trash every night that has to get cleaned up. And it's unsafe, it's disgusting. It's not good. This is a video that this is from our security cameras. This is loud music blasting. You can hear it in the store. It's just an unsafe environment. It's public alcohol, public drug consumption. And this is a lot of people to just be standing. These people stand here all day, all night, all summer. And yeah, it affects our business. It's not good for the, and I appreciate that this issue keeps getting brought up. But yeah, something needs to be done for sure.
Yusuf, thank you. And I know you have a family-owned business. You have a wonderful, wonderful family and wonderful business there. And just want to say thank you, and you deserve better. Your family deserves better.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Yusuf. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'm going to continue with testimony. Is there another Ryan here? Ryan Pavo? Is there an Andy? William Woodruff? Hey, William.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is William Woodruff. My wife, Kirsten, had to return to work. We're residents of Charlestown. I'd like to start with a quote from our current mayor. Our families deserve a city where every park and playground, every classroom, and every corner bodega is a safe place to be at any time, day or night. We need to ensure this promise is kept to all residents because, from my perspective, it's far from being fulfilled. I'm a registered nurse with a career dedicated to supporting vulnerable populations, including those impacted by addiction and mental health challenges. I'm a combat veteran. I also served as a court officer in the Commonwealth for 5 years. Why I'm here? I'm a parent of a 3-year-old who attends a Park Street school, located at the heart of these issues. Each day I walk through Boston Common and Downtown Crossing and see unsafe, unhealthy conditions firsthand. As a parent, I'm deeply concerned for my child's safety while trying to enjoy the parks and playgrounds, as well for other families and children who deserve to feel secure in what has become what should be a welcoming and safe public space. We can go on and on about the horrible issues, but I'm going to fill in the voids I have not heard today. I kind of wrote this on the cuff. I want to take a moment to thank Ed Flynn and the Boston Police Department for their rigorous direction and tireless efforts to address this issue in the past few months. I've seen changes. It's extremely disappointing that the district attorney, Kevin Hayden, a public official elected by the people, has not deemed this issue important enough to send an appointed representative to this critical discussion. It lacks the engagement from their office and is disheartening and reflects a troubling absence of leadership on an issue that affects every Boston resident. As someone who has worked both in the law enforcement and healthcare, I also worked as a nurse in a jail for 5 years. I see how interconnected these issues are. Boston Common, once a symbol of our city's resilience and unity, now faces a significant safety and public health challenges. Open drug uses, discarded needles, untreated medical issues turned our cherished space into a crisis zone. To address this, we have different comprehensive approaches that can be accountable with different compassions. Mental health addiction services, that's out there. We need to apply this. Maybe making mobile outreach units and treatment programs for people that need it. We've already enhanced security. Harm reduction initiatives, which is access to needle disposal sites so moms don't have to walk around with a sharps container. We also need to collaborate with local hospitals. We have some of the best in the entire world. Mass General, Tufts, I work at BIDMC on a trauma floor, and BMC. This is often where the people in crisis, which we're trying to help, turn to safety, or sometimes just turn to get away from the police. By bringing in their expertise and understanding, we can directly help these areas of the city all over and provide immediate care and build trust with the people out there. Crimes in Boston Common has escalated to an unacceptable level, from theft, vandalism, everything that everybody's talked about. Allowing this crime to persist is not only endangering the public, but it erodes the very fabric of our city's pride and security. We must act decisively to ensure this criminal activity is addressed properly, swiftly, and effectively, with zero tolerance for certain actions that should be labeled by the laws that we already have listed. The streets look like a zombie apocalypse. I read this in an article of a comedian that came in town. He just joked about Boston, and it was very sad to hear, yet comical. I understand the difficulties of balancing this public safety issue and justice and community health, but Boston's been around since 1630, so we don't really have any excuses. So I urge the people here to take decisive action to hold the public officials accountable for their role in addressing the issues, because this is critical for businesses, for family, for children. I don't see any fear-mongering. We're here to address genuine concerns of residents and taxpayers. So we're gonna have to channel our energy into the solutions to create better problems, to create better solutions for our problems. So again, I wanna thank Ed Flynn, the Boston Police Department for their dedication and hard work to improve this situation. And so hopefully we can together create a real meaningful change in a shorter period of time than a longer period of time. So thank you.
Thank you, William. And William, also want to say thank you for your service to our country and the armed services as well.
You're welcome.
Is Shannon here? Hi, Shannon.
Hi, my name is Shannon McDonald. I moved here from New York City in 2006 to Downtown Crossing, and I still live here at 1 Franklin Street. My main concern is safety. I came to Downtown Crossing thinking this is the best area of Boston with access to all areas by foot. I walk to MGH to work at different hours and have done so since 2006, and always assumed the feeling of safety would increase and the Downtown Crossing area would prosper. And we've seen it go up and down, but I do think the last year has been the year that I've been more fearful than ever. I think an on-the-ground police presence makes a huge difference, and just need more of it. And I do think this area should, again, flourish and have a better reputation if we can supply that for the area and make it safe. More businesses will come, more people will live in the buildings in this area. And I know colleagues who have moved to Boston to work at MGH with me have chosen other areas of the city because of the lack of the feeling of safety when they're in Downtown Crossing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shannon, for your testimony. My friend all the way from South Boston, John Provenzano, you're up next. I also want to say thank you to a friend of mine who's a police officer that's working, Officer Z. He's out of A1. I want to say thank you to my friend Z for the professional work he does. John Provenzano, you're on the hot seat.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Thank you for being here. The councilors that have been here. And thank you to William. I appreciate everything you said. We need some answers, and we can all get up here and tell you what the problems are. But what I'm anxious about is trying to get answers to solve this problem. And I know you guys work around the clock and trying to get get things done. And what my comments are going to be is just, I come from South Boston, my lifelong resident of South Boston, and I could honestly tell you right now, and my family is still there, everybody with one son that lives away, is that I don't even feel that safe in South Boston anymore. There are things that are going on. The overflow from those poor people, those sick individuals, the mental and the drug problems that these people have is overflowing all through the city. And we have to do something to solve that more than just making them disappear from one area. So if I could just jot down these couple of things. Number one would be, if we were saving money since the day that bridge was torn down, we'd have enough money by now to get that done, to get that bridge done. And once we get that bridge done, I had family members that worked in that hospital, and there were signs there, and I remember going over and seeing them, welcome to people that needed the help, and they got it. It was 100% better than what we are now. I would urge, and I apologize for this because I get a little bit angry. Our society is angry. There's no question about it. Our society is angry. I've been a victim of that anger, and I'm straightening that out personally to get squared away. But what we need, I went to a funeral yesterday of a family member that was a firefighter for 40 years, and that church was full. When I say police, firemen, firefighters, by the hundreds. And the priest made one little comment after I talked to him afterwards, and he said, I wish, and this isn't getting into religion, this is just getting into faith, of being kind to each other. And he said, I wish that this church looked like this every week. We'd be a better society for it. And that's one of the things that we have to do. We have to start being kind to each other. We have to start helping out each other, neighbors and strangers alike. Walking and driving, it's not good. We have an angry society. And I know you two folks that I know personally work hard for this. And I wish everybody was here because I would have a comment for the whole council. And I mean this sincerely. And I'll get as many people, and if everybody from every town got people, if we went and petitioned the whole council to lead us, because you are our leaders, to the State House with the whole ton of residents, to tell them that we need the money between the city and the government and the state and the federal government. We need that bridge built so we can start helping these poor people that are in trouble. They're right outside. They're right outside. They're outside. They walk the streets in South Boston. And that scares me because I can't help them. As a matter of fact, most of them want to do harm because they need money, they need this or they need that. So that would be one of my solutions.
John, you probably have about 20 seconds. Is that okay?
That's fine, Eddie. I've got a bunch of stuff, but it's just, I was watching you on TV. I planned on coming. I wasn't feeling that good, but once I started hearing the stuff here, we just have to do more. And that would be, probably, I guess that would be my last thing, the first thing to say was, let's get that organized. Let's get to the State House. The mayor has connections at the State House, from what I understand. You know, she's doing pretty good with them. And get that bridge done. I think that would be half of our problem to solve. And the other one would be, and I know you've heard this before, thank you, more police. When you're walking down the street or you're driving your car, wave at a police officer. Wave at a police officer. Let them know that we appreciate what they do, but that's not enough. They need more police officers. Thank you, Eddie. I'm sorry I took too much time.
Thank you, John, and sorry for your loss of your brother-in-law.
Thank you.
The Boston firefighter yesterday, who's a recipient of the Fitzgerald Award, the highest award that can be bestowed on a Boston firefighter for his bravery. Thank you. Rachel? Good to see you, Rachel.
I'd like to thank the Boston City Council for allowing me, as well as everyone else, the opportunity to speak on this critical issue. Last year, I came to the Boston City Hall in order to see if I could have a hearing requested to discuss the downtown neighborhood, because at that time, I had already seen that there was indeed an issue, a crisis, actually. Instead of a hearing on that, our hearing was held to discuss methadone mile, a day ahead of another hearing to discuss methadone mile. Numerous hearings have been held on this particular area without a single actionable plan yielded. Out of frustration, I went to speak with a state representative during a coffee hour. And I asked him for action. I asked him for cooperation with the Boston City Council and, of course, the mayor's office. And I plan to ask other state representatives and other state senators because, in fact, there needs to be more cooperation between the City Council and members of the legislature on this issue. In the interim, though, another methadone mile has, in fact, sprung up, as many people have attested to. Still, there's been scant focus on the entirety of this now not so new, critical, or I could even say crisis area. A lot of attention has been given to the Boston Common, and I can see that to a certain point. However, it must be said that between North Station and South Station, it is a large, open-air drug market. Not just fentanyl, there's also meth, there's also trank dope, which has wiped out Philadelphia, and I'm scared that it could do the same to Boston. This is unacceptable. So I also want to say, let me be clear, I will always stand with the recovery community, always. But it is critical to focus on businesses, their staff, and residents. As it is, businesses in the downtown area are struggling. People are shooting up. Aggressivity toward employees in these different businesses is taking place. We have theft, public defecation. The amalgam of this has all allowed blight to set in this area. So the struggling businesses have even more to contend with. Again, this is unacceptable. A feasible plan must be put into place. While I appreciate this opportunity to testify at this hearing, after a certain point we need action, not just talk. Also, I want to say that there needs to be more support given to the police. They are extended beyond their capacity. We can no longer afford, or we can no longer continue to handcuff them, no pun intended. The police cannot continue to be more creative because politicians are not doing their jobs. So I have 3 suggestions. One, again, there needs to be greater cooperation between the Boston City Council and the Massachusetts Legislature. But there also needs to be greater cooperation between the City Council and the Mayor's office. I do feel like the Mayor's office could be more implicated. In fact, they must be. And then also, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Although we have tremendous resources and great hospitals and very talented minds, we need to send a message that Boston is not a dumping ground for other parts of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and other states. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rachel. I think I called on everybody that signed in. If I didn't call you and you did sign in, or you still want to testify, please come down now. This is an opportunity. Yes, sir. Come on down. Anyone else want to testify? Yep, come on down. And just state your name and where you're from, please.
Sure. Yun Chase, and I live in downtown Crossing. When Yusuf was showing the pictures, I was so disappointed that Councilor Durkin was not here, because that's exactly just across the street from the fountain of paradise that she was trying to describe. We're at this meeting for public safety and criminal justice. And this is the wrong meeting if you want to talk about the success of the restaurants on Temple Place. That's a waste of time. And if we cannot get the counselors in this room to understand this is a real crisis, this is not fear-mongering, right? This is a real crisis. Then we've already lost if we can't convince the people that are sitting in this room. So that was kind of disappointing. Last year, September, my wife and I and my adult son was coming out of a restaurant in Chinatown at the corner of Beach and Washington. Full pasture, you know.
Yep.
And we were assaulted by a person with mental illness. It was a large person. He's, I would say, 6'2", 250 plus, large guy. Grabbed the back of my son's neck, yanked him, clotheslined him, and I went back, and then he started trying to push me, and I pushed my wife, to protect her from being attacked. And all in the meanwhile, I'm calling 911, getting the police onto the scene. And all through that incident, I injured my leg because of that assault. And so I was on the crutches for a month and plastic boot harness afterwards. So this is not a narrative, as somebody wanted to put it. This is a reality. And I'm so disappointed that Councilor Durkin is not here to listen to this. Councilor, we're talking, we may be just talking about violence of somebody beating somebody else up, but I have seen on Hamilton Place, leading up to Orpheum Theater, somebody pissing into the door corner. My son has witnessed some lady just butt naked, undressing on LaGrange Street between Washington and Tremont. I have seen from my unit, outside the window, even at night, there are people sleeping in the doorways of Foot Locker and the lids, and the homeless person who's sleeping there will piss in a cup and throw it onto the sidewalk, and there's a group of people just walking right over it. Are they violent? No, but does it make you feel safe? It does not. I think it's, we do need to worry about violence and so forth, but we also need to clean up the city. And Councilor Flynn, thank you so much for fighting for us. I am behind you. If you're stuck, I will push you from behind. Keep fighting for us. Do not waver, and let's get something done. And let's not have another one of these meetings 6 months from now or 12 months from now. Let's have some action. Let's see what would be different November of 2025 than November of 2024. I would love to see some difference, some actionable items have taken place. But thank you, Councilor Flynn. I am fully behind you, and I'll push you from behind if you get stuck.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Just want to respond briefly I honestly believe that there's a lot of unreported violence against the Asian community here in the city of Boston. I proudly represent the largest Asian community in Boston. You were assaulted, your family was assaulted. Don't know the reason why, but it was probably a mentally disturbed person. But I opened up my opening statement with a story about a young woman that was beat up, got a nose broken and cheekbone fractured on Boylston Street and Tremont Street for no reason, in my opinion, because she was Asian. But I do think there's a lot of unreported violence. I also think there's a lot of random violence in Boston. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Councilor
It's
Flynn,
good to see you.
Councilor Murphy. I've been sitting here as long as you all have, and I want to thank you for your absolute commitment to this issue. And you're right, it's optics. It's not just what was said before our other counselor left. It's visual images that we just saw from the gentleman who went before me. It's all of that and it's more. I'm Peggy Ings, by the way. I'm the Vice President of Government and Community Relations at Emerson College. I have been there a couple of decades, so I've seen it come and go. But I just want to say that today is a day that we really all have to come together at the end of this session. Mm-hmm. And we can call it action, we can call it meetings, but really, we don't want to go down the paths that we see that were mentioned in here today. And we're not even near those. But the feeling is we're getting very close. We have, on a given day, we have 5,000 people who come and go at Emerson College, students, staff, faculty. We have theaters. We have the most theater seats in the state of Massachusetts. Those are open to the public. They are thriving, thank God. But the things we've had to add this year, and this college has moved from the Back Bay almost 25 years ago now. This year has been a telling year. As you know, we opened up the beer garden. We were proud recipients of being able to activate the corner at Boylston and Tremont. It has been tremendously successful, and it has nothing to do with Emerson College. It has everything to do with the city wanting to make some activation sites work. I'm proud to stand here today and say we are also we had our second year, and we are going to have a third year, but our second year really made us take a pause. Every morning we'd come to the beer garden. There would be either fecal smearing all over the coolers, all over the trailers, all over the planters. This was going on for about every week, at least twice. We had to close down a number of times. We couldn't open a number of times because we had to start training people in a hazmat fashion. So we turned around, we just said, okay, what are we going to do? So we had some cameras, more cameras. We did everything we could do. And then we started getting some folks who didn't want to come in and just have some fun, to really just take over the microphone, take over the stage, give people some, really angst. So we got another security system going. By the way, fortunately, Emerson College's police department is licensed, has arrest powers. Yes, and they have helped the BPD, and the BPD, I can't even begin to tell you how lucky we have to have the Boston police. Unbelievable people. And we just turned it all around. We said, okay, people want to jump the fences, we'll escort them right out. But the point I'm making is that this action that we took to just do this garden turned that corner around. Now I know at the Brewer Fountain, they tried it. It didn't work. They had many opportunities to just start it up again, and they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. We persevered because we had 2 security systems, and we also had our own ECPD. They come around every hour. They're plainclothes, and they really did a phenomenal job. We need more of that type of activity, and we need not leave this room today without saying a selection of people, a representative group of all the people that represented other organizations, residents, in a room, and I'm going to quote Rishi, and we're not getting out of there until something happens. Because Councilor Flynn, I have to thank him publicly, because he ran to me and said, I want you to tell your students this year, be careful in the common. And I personally, this is coming from Councilor Flynn, will come to your orientations, each and every one of them, so that I can be the voice to tell them to be safe. It's a different year. We're working on it tirelessly, and we want you to have that opportunity to have more information, and the more information we can give your students, the better. And fortunately, we have been very lucky to not have a lot of the activities that were mentioned today. So I want to end by saying thank you, thank you, thank you, Councilor Murphy. It's so good to see you again. And the college stands by anything and everything we could do for this community and beyond. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peggy, and thank you to Emerson College. Thank you to Suffolk University as well. But these college students, the faculty and the staff, they're members of our community. They add tremendous value to this neighborhood. We value them as neighbors. We value them as employees. We respect Emerson College and Suffolk and the other educational institutions that we have in the downtown area. Is there anyone else that hasn't spoken that would like to speak? Hearing none, I do want to have closing comments. Let me start with Councilor Murphy. Councilor Murphy, do you have any closing statement?
Just that this was a great hearing. Thank you for calling it. And looking forward to the continued partnership. And like the previous speaker said, when we come back, and I know we'll see each other many times before then, but November 2025, like what will be concrete changes that we can speak to and that we can talk about, that we see, and how can we use our power here on the council, but residents and colleges and police to work together to get this under control. So thank you for bringing us together.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Thank you for your important work and leadership as well. Let me close by talking about a couple of points that I observed. Like the residents here or the employees that are in downtown, or the businesses or the tourists, the students. I love the downtown area. I love the Boston Common. I love everything about it. I went to school here, high school in Chinatown. I worked at the courthouse for 8 years at Suffolk Superior Court. I've been here for 8 years. My wife works off of Federal Street as well, not right in the financial district. But this hearing came about, and you probably have realized a lot of my colleagues did not want me to have this hearing, and they pushed back on it, and they were saying that, I was exaggerating what is happening in the downtown crossing area or the Boston Common, as you probably had a sense from listening to some of my colleagues. But that's not the reality. We listen to the reality from residents. We listen to people that work here. We listen to people that love the area, that have made this their home, that have made this area their career. And they have asked us, or they send their kids to the Park Street School, and they're walking through downtown crossing, or they're walking through Beacon Hill. But they're not giving up on the downtown crossing area. They're not giving up on the Boston Common area. They don't want me to be a cheerleader for the neighborhood. They want me to solve problems. And I'm not going to come to a meeting and tell everybody how great things are, because that's not how I do things. I'll come to a meeting and tell you exactly how I feel and what I'm going to do about it. But I can take the criticism, because that's part of the job of elected officials. But the meeting really came about because residents demanded respect, residents demanded action, and residents demanded answers from all of us, including myself. They clearly want police presence in the downtown area, in the Boston Common. I think they want us to enforce the laws as well. And that probably takes a little more effort and time in working with our state legislators, as several people have mentioned. But I think there has to be some type of reform where when you are selling drugs openly, you are arrested. And if you have a criminal record, you do time. You do jail time, or you do prison time. We also are compassionate people. I was at St. Anthony's yesterday, twice actually, with Mary Ann Ponte, once for a veterans lunch, but also once to support the residents of Chinatown with some food access issues. But we need to ensure that anyone that's suffering from substance use issues has the ability to get into treatment and to get into short-term and long-term housing, and to have and live with dignity and respect. But you can't do that on the streets. You can't do that while you're using. You need a detox bed. And that's the experience I had as a probation officer. I spent all of my time getting people on probation, getting them into detox, whether they liked it or they didn't like it. But the option of using drugs should not be there for anyone. In my opinion, they need to be cared for medically and given the opportunity to live a healthy life. But what residents are asking for is for us to at least acknowledge there's a problem in downtown crossing, for at least us to acknowledge there's a problem in Boston Common, and to come up with some solutions. I don't have all the answers. I'm going to reach out over the next week after Thanksgiving with Rishi, who I respect. He's on the board of directors of the St. Francis House. He's done more to help people in recovery and supporting the homeless than anybody. But residents are also asking that we respect their quality of life. When they take their child to school, that child can go to school without being assaulted or harassed. We want to support our businesses in the downtown area as well. Businesses call me up all the time. They say, hey, Ed, we don't feel safe in there. That's why we're not coming back. That's why I'm trying to make this neighborhood safer. You pay huge property tax, and you want a little bit of respect, and you want some fairness for you and your family. Let's continue to work together. I'm going to reach out to the Residents Association. I'm going to reach out to the Boston Police, the park rangers. I think that's part of it as well. And the businesses, the colleges, the universities, the residents, the schools. Everybody loves the area, and we're not giving up on it. I want to say thank you to Shane for being here and working so late, and want to say thank you to Councilor Murphy for being here as well. This meeting is adjourned.